Shalom, shalom, peace, come on in. Hopefully all is well with everyone. Thank you for joining us one more again. Give me a second. Just trying to get Facebook on. We should. I'm supposed to say the platforms. We're just trying to get one of the virtual spaces on. This is so crazy how we got to talk. If they slow the signal down just because of that, y'all see how crazy this is getting. How they looking for anything to stop persons from really going live. Anyway, so thank you all. Hopefully all is well with you. Prayerfully you're doing well. Shalom, peace, peace, peace. Hello, hello. Welcome, greetings, all that stuff. We're getting ready to start in just a little bit. Getting this last bit of stuff set up so we can get it in. See if I can step back. How does it look? Okay. Make sure we're centered on all these platforms. Just talking to a brother that I met while I was doing the live yesterday. Might have some help from time to time now. Set up, we'll see. Or at least a little ways down the road, we're gonna get there. Just bringing on one last platform and we can get started. Blessed enough to be able to come to you from the water one more again. Pray for me as always, even when I'm in the public. Let's see. What are we talking about today? Okay. All right. Oh well. Now I apologize. I don't know if I use it's right on YouTube. ITS, because I can't remember the confusing mess out of me still to this day. Are you supposed to use, like I said, the it's American Dream and it's belongs, so since it belongs to, I put ITS with no apostrophe, right? Because if I put apostrophe, doesn't that mean that I'm saying that I'm doing a contraction? It is. Is that correct? I don't even know. So I hope I didn't mess that up. If I did, oh well, it is what it is. I don't know everything. But hopefully you get the point. If I need to fix it later, I'll fix it later. That's correct? Okay, thank you. I was sitting up here on these platforms trying to be like, I don't know if that's correct. Okay, cool. Thank you. I was struggling. I was like, man, is it it's? I was literally sitting up here 2 minutes afraid to type anything into these platforms. Because I was like, oh man, is it it's? Is it this? Is it blah, blah. Oh, praise y'all. All right, I got it. Shalom family, come on, man, come on. And we're going to get started. We're going to get started in just a bit. We're actually about to get started right now. Let's go ahead. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in Yahavah's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it is in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect. Today's message, Shalom. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi, ¿cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi, ça va? Ni hao, namaste, osayana kituya, Ohio, I see you, Renut, au revoir, comme ça, kamsamina, aloha, ciao, ensemble, habarigani, akwaba, madaase, etese, jambo, mimini kofi, the nifra kukatan and the way, bokuto, bokutao, grand rising, greetings, welcome, top of the rising to you, all that great stuff. Hello everybody, I am Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant to Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time. Being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. We're thankful and grateful for another opportunity to roll with you one more again. Hopefully you guys are ready to receive some word. We're going to get ready to get started. I got a little different type of setup today, but prayerfully everybody should be able to catch me all right on the virtual spaces that you're joining us in. If you are able to reverence the word of Yahavah by standing to your feet, we ask that you do so at this time, or however you're able to reverence the word, respect it, whatever the case might be. Of course, please be careful if you're on the road or if you're at work or something like that. Please don't get yourself in trouble or mess up, or if you're doing something for the babies or your mom, whatever. Don't, but if you can, reverence the word with us and do our Bible pledge with us in just a little bit. We would greatly appreciate you doing so. So yes, but we are going to we're going to get ready to do that in a little bit. As you are standing, just some quick announcements. You should see the list of announcements for the week sent out via my Google Calendar invite, and so you should see that just in a little bit, or well, a little bit after the live session. I have sent out word to some of you about trying to have some conversations throughout the day. We will have our evening session tonight, continuing our Malachi series, Malachi. So that'll be at 8 p.m. New York time this evening, and also at 9 p.m. New York time, or hold on, 9 p.m., 7 p.m. I had to double check. I think it's at 7 p.m. New York time. We'll have our weekly meeting that we're going to be having, getting us ready for Feast of Tabernacles. So prayerfully, everybody be ready for that. And I promise, because last time we were on the road and I didn't have a spot, so I promise I'll make sure that I'm in a specific location and we're ready to go. Okay? But Tadah, thank you, family, for being on. We appreciate you no matter where you are around the world. Once again, if you're able to rise to your feet and reverence of Yahavah's word, thank you for doing so in advance. While you're doing that, let's say shalom and peace to everybody on all these platforms. How you doing, Minister Tracy, Cole, Minister Samantha Ray, Beck, Elder Anais, Brother Alton, we the best. Okay, looks like somebody already got to him. How you doing, Sister Dawn, Sister Tamika? How you doing? Alpha 2A is already gone. Moderators on your stuff already. Thank you. Appreciate you guys as always. Is this Hebrew Israelite? Yes, I guess you would say Hebrew Israelite. I'm Israel by nation. I'm Israel by blood. Therefore, I would be Alpha or Ifrit, or what you call Hebrew. And how's everybody doing? Thank you for being on all these platforms. I can't name the platforms because they try to take us down for any little thing. But thank you for being on virtual spaces. If you're on this platform I'm pointing at, you should be able to see all the stuff in the description, including the link tree. We've gotten back to getting that in the title and everything, so we appreciate you. Let's see, how you doing, Sister Judith? Elder Alma, thank you for being on with us. You can always check out my wife, the Honorable Alma, on TikTok, YouTube, website, and Pinterest. You can check her out on TikTok. The videos that are flowing from Bloom and Flourish 3. So right, Bloom and Flourish 3. Yeah. Okay, so Bloom and Flourish 3. Let's see. Is that Black Barbie? Okay. Yeah, it's not the camera. The camera, it's the camera, but the camera is kind of jacked, if I just be honest. So eventually, at some point, I have a better device for you guys. You're just gonna have to give me a little bit of time. That being said, prayerfully you can see me enough and hear the word enough. Plus, I'm also not, shade, all that stuff, trying to put stuff together. So it is what it is. But thank you for being on. How you doing, Sister Joy? How you doing, Sister Jennifer? How you doing, Sister Greta? Big brother Thomas. Not because you're big, but because you're older than me. How you doing, Brother Rodney? Crypto, Tennessee whiskey, I guess that is. Soka Doctor, is that? Belinda, Christopher, Bill, Lottie Di, everybody on all the platforms. If I miss your name, charge to my head, not to my heart. Thank you for any likes, shares, subscriptions, hitting the notification tab. Thank you for helping us to grow on all these dynamic platforms that we're putting together. Thank you for going down this journey with us. For us, this is not just virtual, it is reality. And that being said, the reality is it's time for us to start. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Thank you for standing to your feet. We're gonna go ahead and say our Bible pledge real quick, and then we shall get into the word. So if you've never done this before, if you'd like to participate, you can put your right hand in the air, or you can put your device in the right hand in the air, or you can just put your Bible in your right hand in the air, and just repeat after me. This is my Bible, this is my sword, and this will I trust. For Yeshua is Lord. No sword of God shall ever be heard, for this is my Bible, and this is Yeshua. Hashem Yahavah, which is Yahavah Shem, his name is authority. Let it be done unto us. You may be seated to go back to what you're doing in the presence of the Most High. Today's theme is kind of a long one, biting a little bit off of somebody, but something that he got from somebody anyways. The American Dream, ... and its side effects. And once again, thank you. I think I did it's correct. That's all I did. The American Dream, ... and its side effects. Right? So we've been talking a lot about America and all these different things going on. We've been talking about, Actually, everybody, hold on 1 second. Sorry, hold on 1 second for me. Hold on 1 second. Just give me 1 second. We're gonna get started. Back. All right. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate you. Thank you for your patience. So uh, got got yeah, I know the sound should be back down. Sorry about this, Sister Deborah. So we were talking about the American dream and its side effects. Right, the American dream and its side effects. You see NyQuil shots, or what is that? NyQuil, or is that a play on New York? I don't know. But either way, how you doing? How you doing, Sister Melissa? Shalom. Alrighty, so how you doing, Apostle Jabril? Long time no talk to. Hopefully all is still well over there on the home front. Alrighty, so we should be back. So on everything. Mic check 1 2. Can you hear me? Mic check 1 2. Can everybody hear me? See me? All right? Yes, no, maybe so. How you doing, big brother Charles? Double OG, triple OG. Everybody can? Yes? All right. How you doing, Mindful Moments? All righty. So here we go. So today we're talking about the American dream, ... and its side effects. We were already we've been talking about this for a long time. I was going to go deeper into it anyways, and didn't know what the title was going to be. We were on the road yesterday, having fun for Family Day, and on the way back, I think, we were listening to some George Carlin. And George Carlin basically said it like this. He said, the only reason why they call it the American dream is because you have to be asleep to believe it. Now, he's not the first person to say it, or at least maybe he's the first person to say those words specifically. But he is not the first person to say that at all. Matter of fact, before he said, we have persons of our own ilk, right? Like Minister Malcolm X, who said, we have never experienced the American dream. We have only experienced the American nightmare, right? So this thought process of the American dream not being valid is not new. This matter of fact, we're going to speak on a lot of different things. And even if you are not American, whether you're talking about private versus public, or even if you're not American as far as non-citizen national, or even if you're not American as far as you think that this is a country, right? Because America is not a country. We'll get into that. That's not me just saying something bitterly. That's me actually speaking truth, all right? Law. That being said, though, this idea of the American dream not being all it's cracked up to be is not new. It's not news for us. It shouldn't be something that makes us go, right? We've heard somebody say this before. And even if you're somebody for what I'm saying, against what I'm saying, whatever the case might be, you've heard this before, right? The thing for us to look at now is today, once again, are what are the side effects? So we have to talk about the American dream. We're going to talk about what a dream is. And we even have to talk about what a daydream is. And maybe we have to talk about nightmares or night terror. We are very aware that in order for this thing called America to exist, right, this American dream even to exist, to dream means that somebody is not fully in the righteous state that they need to be. Okay? So if it's the American dream, it's something that somebody's supposed to dream of. Whether they're trying to talk about vision, right, even kind of like in the sense of iron, right? Amen. Elder Nice, and how you doing? How's everybody doing on YouTube? Minister Samaya LeRae, once again, thank you for excellent word, by the way, for early rising Bible study session. Praise Yahweh. Even when we're in the midst of what might seem like an American nightmare, she was reminding us that we can depend on Yah and the dream of of the kingdom. Amen. So, but and that can sustain. Praise God. What does the word say? When you've done all you can to stand, stand. But that's standing in Yah's way and standing in Yah, Him standing in you. Also, too, seek ye first the Elachim, right? Right, the kingdom of Elachim and all His righteousness, and all these things will be added unto thee. Right? These are things that we can see. Right? We can stand on His word. We can stand on His promises. So this is not a scare tactic to get everybody to say we can't do anything. This is a scare tactic to show us that within Yah we can stop dreaming a vision that's anti-us, and we can actually start living a reality that enhances us. If that makes sense, right? How you doing, Mrs. Just Cuz? Or Mrs. Just Cuz? Please forgive me, I'm saying it wrong. Okeke or Okiki, not sure, right? Thank you for being on. Thank you for being part of the community. How you doing, Krista Costa? Thanks for being part of the community. We appreciate you. Right? And if you can stick around to the end, we got a long ways to the end. But feel free to go ahead and put your information in the shout out at the end. If you can't make it to the end, feel free to look up our link tree and stuff if something I'm saying interests you or you'd like to participate in more learning. Or for us, it's not just virtual, it's reality. We continue to grow by the day as the kingdom should. I'm on. How you doing, Kate Craig? Thanks for being on. Thanks for sharing. Alrighty, so here we go. So the American dream. So first things first. If one is dreaming, one is not. There's one of two things that are happening. If one is dreaming, they are either asleep. This is gonna sound weird, but just stay with me. How you doing, Brother Jay? I saw your text, by the way. I'm gonna try and get back to you today if I can, even if briefly. Hopefully all is well with you. If one is dreaming, one is either asleep or awake. But it's a dream for one who is asleep and a dream for one who is awake are two different things. Now there's this kind of middle spot. But when one is dreaming, right, one is either asleep or awake. Somebody's like, what? Okay, this is what I came here for. Just roll with me for a second, right? Because we're talking about the American dream. But can the American dream, can you be asleep and have the American dream? Most certainly. Can you be awake and have the American dream? Most definitely. Can you be walking around and have the American dream? Most definitely. Why am I going to these places? Well, because if one is awake when they dream, right, we might call that a daydream. Now, what happens in a daydream? If you're daydreaming, usually what's happening is you're there, you're going through the motions. Many a time you're bored, right? And you're just kind of like, I wish I was anywhere but here, right? Anybody, when you went to school, right, for those in the Western world especially, or really probably any of them, right, the way, because most of them copy off the Western world, but especially for, I know, well, I'll speak for myself personally. I know some of you have told me that you didn't like school either, but, school is not necessarily built to help you as much as it is to make sure, that you're ready to do stuff for the system and make money for somebody else, right? So when you went to school, and how you doing, Acts, prayerfully this within itself will raise the frequency, so to speak. We're talking about getting your consciousness together, all those different terms we use, right? So when you went to school, if you were like me and you got bored, you had daydreams. I still got my classwork done. I still was quiet. I still could answer a question if the teacher called on me. I was in two places at the same time to a certain degree, right? You said, well, what is the American dream? What is the American dream? You tell me, Brown. Hey, welcome. I'm not coming at you. I'm saying, tell me, what is the American dream? American dream when we were growing up was what? Was to be able to get a house, have a white picket fence. I don't know how you have half a child, but I get this averages, I guess, 2.5 children, right? You were going, everybody could be rich. Racism was a thing of the past, or would become a thing of the past, right? Everything would be what you wanted it to be, whatever that was. It was kind of like, yes, we can, What is the American dream? I don't know, yes, we can. Or kind of like Trump, and people forget the first person to do this was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan ran on the same slogan, make America great again. What does that mean? What is America? Was it ever great? When people ask these questions, was it ever great? Well, what is the greatness based off of? See, because for certain persons it was great because you had chattel slaves, you had all the money, you got people to get rid of their golds, right? You got rid of a lot of stuff, and you took on somebody else's stuff, and you don't know by law an actual American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas, right? Copper-colored persons indigenous to the Americas. So when they were saying make America great again, and we don't talk about debauchery, I can't say this word, but well, I won't say it now actually. But the forcing of yourself upon persons, women, having children and doing it on purpose to have it, literally Willie Lynch syndrome, having children to the point to where everybody can't even stand up for righteousness because you think that your color or your bloodline is it as far as your DNA. And so, hey, even though my father might have forced his way on my mother, right, in order to cause confusion in my community, I'm still going to say that I'm both, and that's what humanity is, rather than, hey, righteousness is righteousness no matter what color you are. You said, but those things were done corruptly? Sure. Those things were definitely done corruptly. But that's what the American dream is based off of. The American dream is definitely corrupt. Watch this. You ready for this? See, this is why I'm trying to go through a certain way, but let's just jump, and then I'm going to go back to where I was. If you allow me to explain, at least you would know where I'm coming from. Even if you disagree, you disagree. But to just disagree randomly is to disagree for sport, right? So let's actually have, like we're getting to a place where it's not even able to have a proper, apologetic thought process. We're in Dunning-Kruger effect, or at least dipping our toe in it. So watch this. So if you want to talk about is something corrupted, time out. Question. If somebody says the American government, question for you, do you know what a government is? I'm talking about by law. What is a government? Matter of fact, let's just do some simple etymology. What is mint? M-E-N-T. Not M-E-A-N-T. What is mint? Not M-I-N-T. What is mint? M-E-N-T mean? The suffix mint put on any word. What would that mean? See, we have to actually, if you don't want to give me a chance to go through that, fine. Let's do some basic stuff to show you that even the way we think about this is corrupt. Right? The dream is corrupt if you don't even know what the words are to get it. If somebody says American dream and you don't even know what an American is, then you already have a corrupted thought process. So question, what is a mint? M-E-N-T. The mint is basically the result. It could be the mindset result, it could be the result of the people, the result of the person, the result of the family, but the M-E-N-T is the result of the action. It is a noun, right? It makes the word a noun. So if I have a government, govern, how one governs is the act. And how they govern you gets you to a place called government. So if there's poverty, it's because of the way somebody governs. Now, that doesn't always have to be on the system. That could be on the way a person govern themselves, all these different things. But if we're talking about the American dream, then this is an American government. And so question, how have your governors, let's go this, let's make it easier. How have your presidents been? These presidents set precedent. Rolling? Y'all rolling? Oh, okay. I just want to make sure that's okay. So government, right? And it wasn't great for us. How you doing, Sister Michelle? How you doing, Cousin Ronnie? How you doing, Sister Sylvia? Right? Wasn't great for us at all. Right? So the government. How you doing, Culture Prospect? So the government, something happened. Someone was acting a certain way. Right? So watch this. Even though there were 8 presidents before this person, but most of you think that George Washington was the first president, already corrupted in the American mind. Okay, question for you. George Washington, he was the first president. How did George Washington get voted in? How you doing, Lynn? Thanks for being on. How does George Washington get voted in? What was the percentage of George Washington getting voted in? Just a quick question, right? This is stuff historically, because if this stuff happened anywhere else, we would call these persons dictators, tyrants, all types of adjectives to make sure that we dismiss the greatness of what it is that they did, right? Or what is supposedly what they did. How you doing? Is it Ben? I don't know if it's Ben to Kebab or Ben to Kebab, right? 609. Thank you for being on. Appreciate you. Hopefully I'm saying that in the ballpark, right? But how did George Washington get voted in? What was the percentage when he got voted in as president? That's your supposed first president, even though he said he had 2 presidents before him that were his favorites. But nevertheless, right? George Washington, when he became your first president, what was the vote? Right? It was 100% voted in his favor, right? Thank you, Culture Prospect. You said, wait, who gave the corrupt machine any permission except for bullying? Well, we're talking about that today, right? But first things first. See, we don't want to answer the question. So the question is, how did George Washington get voted in? What was the percentage? It was 100%. It was unanimous. The first and only unanimous. Now, question, if anybody ever gets voted in unanimously to anything, we're not talking about, okay, there's 9 persons on the Supreme Court. We're not talking about, okay, there's 50, 100. We're talking about thousands of persons. and 100% votes somebody in. If that happened anywhere else, if that would happen with Mussolini, if that would happen, see, they were at least smarter than that. If that happened with Mussolini, if that had happened with Adolf, if that would happen with Stalin, if that would have happened, well, I guess you can't vote. They weren't voting as far as Leopold, but if that had happened with Leopold, if that had happened with Musa, if that would happen with Kwame Nkrumah, if that would happen with Malcolm X, we would have set something up again, right? Did I say Shalom, peace? How you doing? Elsa Kudu, thanks for being on with us. So if that had happened anywhere else, we have a problem with it. You say, no, that's not right. How could that be happening? How could that be going on? How could that be 100%? How you doing, Brother Dwayne? Right? He said GW was black. Well, I don't know. That's kind of something I've heard the rumors of it. His wife was, though. She was a brunette. Well, a Francais, brunette means brownish. But anyways, I don't know anything outside of that we're talking about. If it had been Marcus Garvey, sure. Right? If you notice, by the way, I already named white and black folk and persons in between. So if that's the game you're playing, right? Stay with me. Stay with me. Don't go with the foolishness that everybody else be on. I promise you, I'm not on that. You gotta hold me accountable for what I say. If other persons have said, if other persons teach, other persons, hey, we can maybe if we have time. Today's not Q&A. Thursday and Friday is actually Q&A. Back 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Thursday and Friday. So feel free to question anything that I be saying, or anything you heard, and see if I know what I'm talking about on that platform in many different ways, in many different platforms. Right, on Thursday, but I'll try to answer as best I can. But watch this, just stay with what I'm saying, because I'm not going to a whole bunch of stuff that other person is saying. I'm telling you, right, if I say what somebody else said, I'll tell you, so-and-so said, right? I'll give you the source material as best I can, right, and still be able to get through this at the same time, right? So, but George Washington had 100% of the vote. And who was allowed to vote? Let's just deal with that right there, you see? Well, you're not the only person on, but I appreciate you, Brown. We have several platforms on at the same time, so thank you for being on, right? So hear what I'm saying? Well, he bought himself in, one might say, right? He also, it was a Masonic thing, right? All his founding fathers are Masons, right? He was a 33rd degree. These first 5 presidents, at least. We know many more, but those first 5 are Masons. And not because we say so or whatever, they're Masons because they told you so, right? If you go to Mount Vernon, you'll see George Washington's a Mason, right? That's his home. If you go to the home of Thomas Jefferson, Monticello, you will see he's a Mason. That's what he does. So that's not me just saying something to try and be, do so-called conspiracy theory or some kind of weird conjecture. No, like they actually, like real talk, 100%. He's actually a Mason. How you doing, Sister Becky? Right? He's actually a Mason. So when you talk about who was allowed to vote now, only 6% of the country was allowed to vote, and even out of them, they didn't allow everybody to vote. There's even a couple cats who were in Congress who made the point to say they did not vote, because they didn't want to stop what everybody considered to be progress. That's a nice way of them saying, yeah, I didn't want to vote for him, but it is what it is, and if I didn't vote for him, or if I didn't go with it, then I was probably going to lose my power or lose what little stuff I had, or not be able to make change that I thought might need to be made, right? And by the way, out of the 6%, how do you get rid of the ones that you don't want to vote? You don't want to have suffrage, you don't want to have the chance to suffer or the ability to choose. Then what do? You say, okay, all women, out. Because not every single woman definitely saw righteousness in the system that you call America, right? You make sure that there's a bunch of persons who are not considered to be people, because the word people by law means nation. So when you read something that says, we the people, it's supposed to be a nation. But time out. Is a black person, so-called black person, are they allowed to be part of the people, part of the nation? Or are they property? See, the American dream. And we got to deal with the dream, but we're also going to talk about some side effects, because if you're always walking around dreaming, there's some side effects, unfortunately, that happen. But before we can get to the side effects, let's just settle this thing. Let's get this thing correct, right? So women can't vote, all right? So-called black persons can't vote because they're property. There was no 60%. They were 0% human being. The Three-Fifths Compromise has nothing to do with how much of a person, a black person, or a so-called black person, Negro, African American, etc. was, right? That also includes Native Americans as well. We forget that in the We the People documentation, it also makes it a point to talk about the savage. The savage is considered to be the Native American. How you know, Sister Kimberly? So according to their standard, this is the American dream, right? So you got to start picking away right away. Okay, and by the way, how did they feel about Irish persons back then? Huh? How did they feel about Italian persons back then? Huh? How did they feel about Dominicano, or Cubano, or Puerto Ricano? Right? The list goes on and on, right? Obviously, this is not something that was for everybody. The American dream is not only fallible, right? It's whimsical. It's diabolical, right? And if you don't know what diabolical is, I should say, they say you have to look at it through the prism of a demon or of the Satan himself. You see? So, excuse me. So we have to get to this place where we recognize what's happened and how persons have lied, cheated us, told us things that are real and are not, right? Even George Washington, not only did they do what they did, they didn't have, like, see, you guys think of today. So you guys go, oh yeah, I registered to vote and I'm going to this school or I'm going to this courthouse or wherever you're supposed to vote, and you go to this place and you walk in line, and then there's a place where it's blocked off and you're in a booth and nobody can see or hear and nobody can tell who you're voting for. Back then they made a point, they said, hey, all of you guys are going to vote for Washington, and if you don't, cool, you have the right to, but what we're going to do is we're going to have everybody have to publicly put their vote there. We're going to all see it on paper, and then if you, right, and we'll see what happens. So there was extreme pressure, even for those that were allowed to vote, to not even change their mind or have the thought process or have the dream that one can change their mind, right? Because the only reason that there's a Senate is to keep up the illusion that you have a choice. How you doing, Elder Tamara? How you doing, Brother Darius? How you doing, Tanya? Hopefully I said that, Tanya Quezada. Prayerfully I'm saying that correctly. Thanks for being part of the community, right? Like this is real. This is real, right? So they're giving it. If you don't notice, by the way, Jefferson himself, Madison himself, right? These are presidents. Now the first, so what you guys think are the first 5 presidents, these presidents themselves made it a point to say, hey, we don't want persons to have the illusion that democracy means that everybody's the same. Madison got upset when they kept talking about democracy, 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 and the people were saying, yeah, what about our vote? Because he was like, democracy is not designed for everybody to have a vote. It's not designed for the people to get what they want. Thomas Jefferson and others came up with the whole electoral college, and they told you the electoral college basically makes it to where they know that they can't trust the people. The people don't have the same mindset. We block them off from stuff, and we want to go a specific way. So when the people don't get what we say we want to get got, then we have persons in the electoral college that are there to ensure that their vote goes to us. You think the electoral college is supposed to make sure that this one person represents the mind of the people no matter what. No, they created the electoral college that when the people start doing what they're supposed to, like form militias to protect themselves, we have persons that are there to say, no, right? When they form these voting militias, let's say it like that, because I don't mean pick up your weapons and your pitchforks and all that right now. But, you know, when they file voting militias, when they say, hey, we got to figure out a way to get this person out to fight for our rights, to do this, they said, no, we have the electoral college to put it right back with what we want. It's the illusion. It's the dream. The American dream, the American illusion that persons believe in. You've been taught to believe in this no matter what. How you doing, King of Kings? Thanks for being part of the community. Right? How you doing, Brenda? So you've been given an illusion. One that says that the American dream is whatever. You've been given the illusion that America is a Christian nation. Can I tell you some persons who were not Christians? Might I? Might I tell you? You might not know this, so allow me. But if you would allow, if we talk about nations that are not actually Christian nations, watch this. I'm sorry, persons who you think are Christians because you think you're in a Christian nation because of Christian nationalism. So you're not aware that George Washington was not a Christian, right? Some of you are not aware that John Adams is not a Christian. You're not aware that Monroe is not a Christian. Madison is not a Christian. Jefferson was not a Christian. Matter of fact, for those of you who love Christianity, you know, so much, I'm not even saying it bad, I'm saying you should defend it, because those of you who defend Thomas Jefferson because of his Christian values, Go read something called the Jefferson Bible, in which Thomas Jefferson literally takes excerpts. In other words, what he does is he takes the pieces that he likes. But watch this. He puts them in 4 different languages according to what he wants, and he removes any miracles that Christ might have done, because he said he only wanted to focus on what he thought was real and not focus on the other stuff, while forcing many women on their backs to have his children, while saying saying in God, under God. Who is God to him? God is made in his image. We are supposed to be the image of Elohim, but in their culture, God is, made in his image. This is why it says one nation under God, but then you have George Washington on the $1 bill. You got Thomas Jefferson on the $2 bill. You got Abraham Lincoln Abraham Lincoln on the 5, 2, 5, 5, right? Yeah, he's on the 5. He's on the copper penny, which gives a hint to who he is, right? Andrew Jackson, $10 bill. These are Virginia slave owners, except Lincoln was a slave owner. He's not a Virginia slave owner. A lot of you don't know these are just the first 5 presidents setting precedents. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, John Monroe, and the second one that I skipped over, John Adams. He was a slave owner too, right? When a person tried to say he wasn't a slave owner, if he went to the White House was the house, the manor, or the plantation. Anybody who was president through the first 18 presidents had slaves on the plantation, right? 17 and 18, maybe they couldn't call them slaves by name, by title, but they were still slaves. So when we say the American dream, when somebody says, what is the American dream? What I'm here to tell you is the American dream is foolish. The American dream is that, hey, everybody's supposed to be able to get along, but time out. It's a lie, because in the beginning, the American dream was not for anybody who wasn't an American, who wasn't a people, wasn't even considered to be a person. And like I say, going back to the 3/5 compromise, you were considered to be 0% human being. So what happens at the 3/5 compromise is that the South pays 3/5 taxes, right? Because they have more land. The North pays 2/5 taxes, and that's how they take care of stuff as far as taxes all over the colonies, all over the corporation of the United States of America. Back then, it actually was supposed to be a country, even though it wasn't done by law righteously. But anyways, we'll get to that in a little bit. That being said, the North noticed that the South wasn't paying taxes on their slaves, while the North was paying taxes on their slaves. They said, what's going on with these slaves? You're not paying taxes on them. We pay taxes per each slave. The South said, well, why would we pay taxes on slaves? They're not even considered to be persons, they're property. And they said, well, then if that's the case, there's property tax. You still got to pay all. So the compromise that comes out of that is the North says we'll pay 2/5 of the taxes on property, including slaves, and the South says 3/5. So when somebody says 3/5 compromise, that actually has nothing to do with being counted as 60% of a human being. 3/5 compromise actually has to do with the compromise, because they weren't paying taxes properly on you. They said, okay, we'll pay 60%, y'all pay the other 40%. How you doing, Jessa? Thanks for being part of the community. Or B Slim on here. Appreciate y'all. Right. How you doing, Wagwan Audrey? You said, oh my God, not everybody should be allowed on the internet. Is that your best way of saying you don't agree? Anthony, you can just say you don't agree. And if you say that I'm wrong, all you have to do is just say why I'm wrong. Ad hominem doesn't mean that you know anything. It just means that you're speaking stuff or whatever. That's like saying your mama. Who cares? If I was saying that you need to start brushing your teeth and you say your mama, okay, everybody laughs, and then guess what? You still probably need to brush your teeth. Right? Who better? Even if you're trolling. You got to bring the trolling game up. How you doing, Brother Craig? What's up with the Ankh? The same thing that's always been. I've worn Ankhs before. Ankh, by the way, I know what it is, so I'm not discouraged by it or whatever. If you go to Kush, or if you go around Eritrea, Ethiopia, South Sudan, etc., even if you go to some parts of West Africa, a lot of you only think about the Ankh by what certain dynasties believe and how they gave them to their netchers, or what you guys call Egyptian gods. The reality is that the Ankh is a cursive way of even writing the Tab, and over time, it started to become something that person could say, well, the top of it represents the woman, the bottom of it represents the man. It does not mean that I automatically have to worship somebody just because I have an uncle. So if somebody doesn't believe that, because I know it's a big thing about people, persons don't research or don't actually have family to talk to, or persons that have gone to these countries and nations and had conversations. So I get it, but that's not what that means, right? Over time, somebody took it and said it should be worshipped. Just like, for example, there's somebody right now that thinks that you should worship the water, but it has nothing to do, like the water was there. Or somebody who says, don't say Lord, because if you say Lord, you're saying Baal. No. Baal was in another language, right? Those who were not Syrian, and then Abra, Hebrew, right, and then Israel, etc. Going through the bloodline. If you don't know, Abraham, his family were actually Syrian, right, before they were known as Hebrew. When he left Syria, right, the Syrians were Hebrew, right? He leaves his father's house, he leaves Syria and only focus on Hebrew and stuff and not the Syrian ways, right? So anyway, so you have to know that. So if you write the book of Jasher, you guys, some of you may or may not know what the context I'm talking about, but anyway. So all that stuff being said, and Genesis, by the shot, we just went through our Genesis series, you'll see that there too. But anyways, so if you have a problem with it, it is what it is. If y'all want to argue and fuss it down, once again, Q&A is on Thursday. I'm not going to do the Q&A on it today. But basically, this was not originally something that you just go, oh, that means that you're dealing with Isis and Osiris. Eventually, over time, Kemetic persons, after they took over for Kush, even though some Cushitic dynasties might have dabbled in it, but by the time you get to certain Kemetic dynasties, especially by the time you get to Queen Tai and Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, etc. By that time, for sure, you're way deep into it. But a lot of persons had no belief that this had anything to do with a nature, let alone worshiping them. Okay? And another thing of evidence archaeologically is that you'll actually see a lot of Israelites, ancient Israelites, that are unearthed. And when they're unearthed, they have ankhs. I won't say like what the percentage is because I don't know, but enough to where we recognize, okay, now somebody might say, well, that's part of the problem. We got into all types of stuff. Granted, then we go back into a place, but just do some research. You'll discover that, yeah, different dynasties did different things with different natures and different belief systems. The ankh in and of itself is actually a character, a way of writing. And before somebody started to then incorporate it with worship, right? It's like somebody saying, oh man, you are wearing Aleph, or you're wearing an Alpha, right? Which is a character. It's a character. It's used to put words together. So if somebody starts to take that and say, we're going to take that and make it into something that the only way that you can get to heaven, or the only way that the Pharaoh can get through and have the heart light as a feather and this and that, and make sure that they have the ankh and all that balance or whatever, that's somebody's belief system they're putting. But originally it was just a character. It's a way of writing. So, the character. So it means a lot of different things to a lot of different persons. I realize it's divisive. To a certain degree, I prayed about it because I try my best not to be a stumbling stone. That being said, if somebody's like, oh, if you wear your culture, you're causing me to stumble, maybe we just need to teach you about your culture, right? But anyways, let's get back to how you doing, Queen Hester. Thanks for being part of the community. How you doing? I can't tell who that is. Somebody just followed. You got the arrow with the top, or the cross at the top of it. Thank you for being on. Appreciate you. Or maybe that's the name that you have on here. But thank you for being on with us. So let's continue though. So, where was I at? George Washington was, by the way, they're in Kemetic culture too, right? It's obelisks, all that stuff. So even the American dream is obviously steeped in some Kemetic stuff they're trying to do for power, witchcraft, etc., control. And if you know about ISIS or Columbia, Washington District of Columbia, and you know that out of that building, right, you come out of that Congress building, then you're coming out, you're supposed to be a representative of Horus or Heru. Even so says the temple on the inside that's built. You don't even know. The dome and stuff, go inside, go look up at the top of it, see the paintings and stuff, and go in the rooms that are built for worship. Read what's on them, right? And they're not talking about Elohim, they're not talking about Yahavah, right? They're not talking about God, they're not talking about Jesus, they're not talking about Buddha. They're talking about somebody specific, right? They're talking about somebody specific. Yes, you were thinking of what? Okay, well, we'll think of it further, right? That's fine. I've already gone through this over and over again. I've got a bunch of stuff. I've even got teachings, I think, specifically on the ankh. So if you want to go through there, like I said, today's Q&A, if you want to come and fire me up about it, whatever, Thursday and Friday is your best bet, all right? It's Q&A, 8 to 11. I promise you I ain't running from nothing. I have a specific assignment for today, and I'm gonna be obedient and faithful to what I'm supposed to do for today, all right? How you doing, Sister Taylor? Appreciate the question. That's why we even do Q&A. But I know some people are heated, like, hey, I gotta get, are you this or blah, blah, whatever. We set aside time so you can question anything you want, because you should try the spirit to see if it's of other comes. So if I'm saying something, try the spirit, so to speak. Try the spirit to see if it is of the Most High. Check it out for yourself, right? And then if you're saying I'm wrong about, we'll go through all that back and forth. But I'm telling you specifically, if you know how to literally read And I'm not even fluent in it per se as far as hieroglyphics, what we call hieroglyphics. I'm not even great with that. I know enough of it though to understand what sounds and words are to a certain degree for where they happen. And this is a character. Eventually somebody tried to make it something to be worshipped. Like I said, somebody could take this water and say it deserves to be worshipped. Many persons have done that before in the story of mankind, right? Just like with your 10 commandments, or not 10 commandments, 10 plagues, right? Those 10 plagues were specifically against different natures, or what you call gods, but different natures of Kemet. There was a nature of the water, so you turned the water to blood. There was a nature, right, that was a frog, a woman with a frog head in the body of a female. So you have frogs that come out of the water, right? There's a nature of the dust of the earth. So Moses struck the dust of the earth, and it would turn into it. Right? There's a nature of cattle, of goats, so what do? You cause plague that even catches them. There's a nature of the insects. Now you have gadflies. There's a nature of the skin, right? So, right, there's a nature that takes care of your skin. So now you got boils. You see what I'm saying? There's a nature of the sky. You darken the sky. There's a nature of rain. So now it rains hail with fire attached. These were all done against Kemetic spirits. Remember, Moses came and he said, I'm coming on behalf of Yahavah. Pharaoh says something and we don't get it because we forget that pharaohs and Kemet did know about Elohim according to the Bible, right? And according to some things we found in archaeology. That being said, according to the Bible, we know for certain that they knew about it because they knew Abraham. The pharaohs knew Abraham, they knew Isaac. It was pharaohs that went after Abraham and Isaac's wives. And the pharaohs themselves had dreams about Elohim. And then Abraham actually builds wells, right? It builds wells and altars all over the place, right? As he's going over the Canaan and stuff like that. When Isaac comes back through with these same pharaohs, the same pharaoh and Philistine kings who have been given jurisdiction by the pharaohs come out with them and say, hold up, our men are tripping. Isaac, we know what's happening with Abraham. We know what's going on with Elohim Shaddai. Our bad. Like, do what you do. Isaac has to unstop the wells that enemies of Abraham and Isaac had stopped up, right? Joseph, when he comes in, he would have been second in command of all of Kemet. We would have continued to marry in. And eventually what happened in Exodus 1, you see there's a new dynasty who says that I do not know. This word know means I'm not intimate enough to identify, right? When a new dynasty comes in and says, I don't identify, I'm not going to honor that covenant with Israel. You guys have become too powerful, and he makes of us slaves. And Goshen, which was a place that we were given because they didn't like shepherds, but they recognized the Elohim in us. Now Goshen becomes a place to where the slaves reside when they're not working for Kemet, to ensure that these persons who are actually part Kemetic, who have some kind of, right, ability to usurp the throne because of Joseph and because of Ephraim especially, but also because of Manasseh, they have some kind of what? They have some kind of way to the throne. This is why later on you'll see in scripture where it actually talks about that there are persons of Kemet that are considered to be children of the Most High. Not only because there's some persons still in Kemet, but there's also by that time persons who had left Kemet with us, right? And Cushitic persons who left Kemet with us and became part of Israel. So, you see what I'm saying? Like, persons will speak a lot of stuff, but we're not even having that part of the conversation, and persons are unaware of that part of the conversation, right? That's all I'm going to do. I've spent like, 5-10 minutes on that. Today we're talking about the American dream. Now, this is a modern Kemet, so this is somewhat apropos, but that's not what Holy Spirit is giving me. That's not what the Controversy is giving me for today, so I'm going to be obedient, right? How you doing, Dagus? Thanks for being on. Thanks for being part of the community, right? How you doing, Nick Knack? Thanks for being part of the community. So we can talk about that. You can question it. You can fire it up. I just gave you a bunch of sources. I just gave you a bunch of information. Look up to see if there's any value or any truth in it. If you feel like there's not, you do what you do. There's some things that we might not agree on, right? But prayerfully, you can hear the rest of what I'm saying or hear some of what I'm saying. But if this is the end of it, I thank you for being on. I appreciate you, right? All right, so let's continue. Praise Yah. Let us continue. So George Washington, obelisk, all that stuff, but you need to recognize George Washington, Virginia slave owner. First president. Second president worked for a Virginia slave owner, and John Adams, he worked for George Washington, and then he becomes second president. He becomes a slave owner himself. Third president, Thomas Jefferson is what? A Virginia slave owner, right? Fourth president, Madison Jefferson and Adams are boys. Number 2, number 3. They died on the same day. They're boys. And both of them on their dying, one of the last things they say when they're dying is the other one will survive, not knowing the other one is dead, or is dying at the same time. How you doing, Edward? Thanks for being part of the community. So let's keep on going. Fourth president is Madison, Virginia slave owner. Fifth president is Monroe, Virginia slave owner. Sixth president is John Quincy Adams, and although we can say he did do the Amistad thing and some other things, he would have been a president. He would have been son of the president. That means he would have been a slave owner, not only slave owner once, but slave owner generationally. His father was in the White House. While you're in the White House, you have slaves. He would be in the White House. He would have slaves as well. How you doing, Edward? Thanks for being part of the community. All right. Seventh president is Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson is a Tennessee-born slave owner and Tennessee slave owner, but he goes to school in Virginia. Right? I mean, this thing is kind of, Martin Van Buren, the only president whose first language was not English, but his first language was actually Dutch. He's Dutch. That being said, he's from, I'm gonna get it wrong, he's from Northeast, not New York, but maybe Massachusetts is where he's from, right? But he is a slave owner, right? Will become a DC slave owner because he'll become a president as well. You keep on going, you'll see a bunch of Virginia slave owners. You're gonna see Pope come up. You're gonna see Zachary Taylor pop up. You'll see somebody else who actually I think died while he was president, or his son died. He almost died or something. Virginia slave owner. A lot of you don't know that it's not Virginia slave owner, but Abraham Lincoln, who was born a slave. Right? He talks about it. His father was allowed to treat him as a slave. Why? Because his mother was part black native and part black African. These terms that we use to go around. So he was considered to be a Melungeon. He hides it very well. He gets to a place where he can be free, and then he works his way up. And if you look at what's going on with the political satire, the political comments of the day, they make it very clear that, they look at him as a black baboon, as a black monkey. You got monkey lips, really. Well, they don't really believe in gorillas, so I guess it would have been chimps he was drawing like. But you'll see all that stuff, whatever, because they believe he's not only an N-word lover, they believe he's an N-word. Even though he keeps telling them he doesn't think that black persons are on the same level as white person, he considers himself to be white. We see constant consistency in these letters. Now, this is all part of these persons who told you, presented something to you, what's called the American dream, right? But as Malcolm X said, what you call the American, we have never experienced the American dream. We have only lived the American nightmare. And before somebody says, well, LeBron James, okay, if we're gonna do this, let's do it like this. If we say one person's never owned slaves, so nobody in mankind has ever owned slaves, is that true? No. So before somebody hits me with LeBron James makes money, look, what about NFL players? You'll be $1 million slave. Go get the book. You said you found out days ago you're 60% European and 25% African and 50% indigenous. Okay. And that, by the way, well, I'll leave it there. Right? But I'll leave that there for now. Right? But, I don't know if it's congratulations or welcome or, an order, but even that in and of itself, that doesn't have to do with nationality. Right? How you doing, Samson? Barak. Shalom to everybody. And Kadosh Alabah, right? Saturday evening was a new moon, so we're in a new month, which means that our Fridays and Saturdays are now Shabbats. Welcome. How you doing, Lone? Appreciate you. Yeah, So when persons tell us about the American dream, first of all, we have to see do Americans tell the truth. These modern Americans, especially because they won't even tell you that an American is a copper-colored person in the city of America. How you doing, Chua? Right? And by the way, if you like this copper bracelet, check out Brother Dwayne when you get a chance. Check out his live sessions and his TikTok and stuff as well, too. But check out Brother Dwayne when you get a chance if you like it. Right? That's great work, as you can see. All right, I need to clean it. I apologize, Brother Dwayne. I'll be wearing copper till the wheels fall off. I'm sorry. But I'll clean it up, so especially when you be wearing the stuff. I like copper when it starts to change colors, so yeah, I apologize. And it also, it feels a certain way too, to me, when it's kind of the bear, whatever. But anyways, so But yeah, so you have to be in a place and be in a position to where you recognize that a lot of you were talking about the American dream. But if you don't know how to speak American legalese, or you don't know what American so-called law is, or you don't know what a person is according to law, or people are according to the law, or even right, then how can you talk about a dream? Right? If if when it says we the people of the United States, it's not talking about anybody who's so-called black, Negro, African, African American, colored, Hispanic, um, uh, a woman, female, Asian, right? None of these persons are considered to be people. When you say we the people, you said I'm up. See, I knew somebody's coming. How you doing, Lisa? Right? And let's see. It's a deal. You said I'm living up. Somebody erased it already. Well, I didn't get to catch the whole thing. Watch this. I already talked about this, but this is why we talk about it. Somebody says you're living the American dream, and they're usually going to say something like this: you're allowed to be able to voice your opinion. Do you think the people in Greece were never allowed to voice their opinion? Do you think that people of Kemet were never allowed to voice their opinion? Do you think that Israelites were never allowed to try the spirit to see if it's an Elohim, therefore voice your opinion, or at least say, hey, I need to see how it's done first before I go ahead and I'm persuaded by something, right? Do you think that there was never any country that ever allowed persons to be represented? Of course there were. This lie, this foolishness that America's the first place, while enslaving persons, that they're the first place to make this thing happen, is foolishness. Their prism, the American prism, comes through the French, English, Spanish, etc. prisons of these other places, right? It comes through the French prism. It comes through a romantic prism, a Greco-Roman prism that's supposed to somehow be given unto us, right? Like you guys are still waiting for the first woman leader of your nation. How many women have led our nations outside of the United States of America? And I'm not just talking about as far as presidents. We're talking about as far as royalty. Y'all just got once your face a few hundred years ago, or well, or maybe I don't know, a few hundred years ago with King Edward, or not King Edward, King Henry VIII, and his daughter, who his young son was on the throne. And then when he died off, they finally left Bloody Mary on the throne, and she came on there and did some bloody stuff. Right? So the mindset that I'm living the American dream because number one, I can voice what my concerns are. You can stow that somewhere. Right? Because even still, with you saying that, I'm very much so suppressed numbers-wise and stuff like that, especially if you know who I am, where I came from, and what we started with. And then the second one, I said, okay, I'm going to focus on giving everything to a biblical prison, right, no matter what, and making sure I actually tell the truth about things. All of our channels been down. That's why if you look us up on TikTok, we have 4 channels. People try to make up ones now to try and get people to come away. And by the way, be careful that if you come on our other, on this platform, I can't say the platform's name, this platform over here, you'll see that if we go over to that platform specifically, there's 3, there's 3 places where, or there's 3 different main channels that are all in tens of thousands. That's because they kept erasing everything. We had to keep coming back, right? And then I had to go and tell their lawyers, like, if you keep doing this, you're breaking your own rules, right? And so since they don't want that, eventually our stuff came back years and years after the fact, and we lost the momentum we had, but we're still back. But you would say that's the American dream because you think that because you see me now, there's no suppression. But it's like when, it's like when persons go, oh man, you guys can cook, you guys can clean, you guys can have your own homes, you guys can travel. Do you not know that Thomas Jefferson sent his slaves still, but he sent his slaves to France as cooks because he wanted to eat French food? But when he went over to France, sure, he learned how to cook French cuisine, but then N-word, you better go in that. N-word, you better go in that slave house over there, right? You better be in chains. You better be in chains while you cooking. You better say master. You better say yes, sir. You better run around. You better go back to your house. You better not do anything other than, 16 to 18 hours of your life is about making sure you serve master. And then after you finish serving master, go back and you will never be allowed to be anything more than that because of the color of your skin. That's the difference. So somebody will say today, right, now you don't have the chains on, and they'll say, well, you can be a chef. Yeah, there's chefs in prison. Right? Have you ever, anybody ever been to, what's the one in San Francisco where they did The Rock? That movie The Rock with Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery. Right? We went there this year. Not San Quentin. What is that? Not Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, but Alcatraz. Alcatraz, yeah. Alcatraz. based off of the movie called The Rock. It had Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage, and forgive me, I don't remember anybody else's name in it. But when you when you go there, yeah, they had chefs. They had prisoners that were supposed to be the ones that were the life of the party. You have prisoners that do the paperwork. You have prisoners that do the math, but they're still in prison, right? And a prisoner by law is considered to be a slave. A prisoner by law is considered to be a slave, right? So if you go to Alcatraz, even if you go to the DC jail, which they dressed up like prisons years and years and years ago, right? So even when some of you say, oh, well, that's just jail versus prison, some of these jails have the same prison doors, and some of them you don't get to go outside, and some persons are spending life in some of these jails for life sentences and stuff like that too. You just don't know. You're not aware, because the American dream has told you something different. The American dream told you that you should trust George Washington. George Washington, you were told this. A lot of you were taught that George Washington had no teeth, and he had dentures, and his dentures were ivory. That's the 5th set of dentures he had. Do you not know that him and his dentist friend were experimenting because he didn't know how to eat right? So all his teeth fell out. He ate candy all the time. So what he did is he ended up going and getting, he would snatch the teeth to complete his dentures, right? They had wire, they had wood. Some of them had wood teeth in there too, but it wasn't just wood by itself. It'd be wood, and it'd be mixed with, and it'd be wires, and it'd be mixed also with the teeth of certain slaves. Because, if you're going to chew or do certain things with your dentures, or you're going to have certain things, so they were experimenting with it. So he was using human teeth. More of his life, he had human teeth from his slaves. And how did he repay them? Because that's what they'll say on at Mount Vernon. Well, he gave them their teeth. He gave them money. He gave them pennies for their teeth. And before somebody says, well, a penny back in the day might have been like $20. Is your tooth, could I pull your tooth and put it in somebody else's mouth and give you $20 for it? Or would you say that something's wrong with that? Right? But this is the person that you consider to be in the American dream. John Adams, when he lived in the White House, he has to have slaves, but y'all still teach that John Adams never had slaves, and he was anti-slavery. You can't be president if you don't have slaves at that time. Thomas Jefferson, he didn't know how he felt about slaves. Thomas Jefferson's daddy had acres across from where Thomas Jefferson would have them, and Thomas Jefferson would buy those too. They would both be in debt, but while they were in debt, they were able to go ahead and have thousands upon thousands of slaves upon 5,000 acres of slave land, right? Right? Like you see what I'm saying? His wife, his so-called white wife, was half sisters with one of the women that he had a bunch of children with Sarah Hemming. Right? Like, that's how crazy this is. The person say, oh yeah, he didn't know what he was doing. And then when you would ask Thomas Jefferson, well, what would you have us do the next generation? He would say, I don't know. It's for you to fix. We don't know what we're doing. We did everything that we could do the best that we did. And if y'all wanted there to be no slavery, or if God wanted there to be no slavery, then there would, he would have gotten rid of it. These are the persons that you put that heavy American dream on. But once again, now that we've established that obviously there's some corruption in the so-called American dream, you said you're pretty sure they'd rather have their teeth for certain, even though they argue for the person that snatches your teeth out. Right? How you doing, Nate? Thanks for being a part of the community. Right? So we're pretty sure that y'all would prefer to have your teeth, but you'll talk bad about it and say, oh, I'm against the American dream. You don't know what the American dream is. You don't know who created this. How you doing, Brother TJ? Let's see. La Flama Bianca? La Flama Blanca. Okay. The word on paper is body, a vessel, and true interpretation. Psalm 36, verse 9. For with thee is the fountain of life, and the light we shall see. The word on paper is a body. I'm not sure if we have the linguistics or language barrier there. I'm not even sure what you're saying there. If we're talking about the word in Hebrew for word, the word in Hebrew is the same word for seed. It's the same word for even semen. It's Sarah. Now I'm talking about like Hebrew, not like modern Hebrew and stuff. The stuff can change into. So we might be having a different thought process there. Right? How you doing, Lefty? So, anyways, now that we've established that, one dreams when they're awake, or one dreams when they're asleep, and one dreams when they're in between. Either way, though, it's still a dream. What do we mean? If you're asleep and your eyes are closed and you're having visions, if you're having something, sometimes it's actually y'all giving you something. Sometimes it could be because you ate too much, who knows? But in this case, let's say we're having this American dream, right? In order to dream, then you got to be asleep. Even this word woke, that so-called writers hate so much, and I'm not on the left or the right, I'm in righteousness. Righteousness doesn't need it. neither right or left. Righteousness means to be in right lawful standing. I could care less about your Republican, Democrat, leftist, rightist, Marxist, whatever it is. I could care less about that. I care about what actually allows persons to grow and be enhanced for the Yahavah Allah has for us, right? So that being said, if we're going to talk about all these persons, we talk about all these things, and we talk about this dream, right? This thing that says woke, a lot of persons don't even know. Now it's become just a Republican or Democrat thing. That's what they turn everything into. Our people, when we used to say stay woke, all we were saying was actually pay attention or be careful, right? That's all we were saying, right? Was pay attention or be careful. That was it. Stay woke. Now, if you don't know to pay attention, because once again, you guys don't know that you speak more French and more Latin than what you think. When you say attention, it's the word attention, right? If I were to say fais attention to my son, he knows I'm saying pay attention. But if I say attention or attention by itself, I say attention, he knows I'm saying careful. So if somebody is in attention, a lot of you might know this. I am actually, some of you are as well, so you can verify if what I'm saying is true or not, right? You said you believe the dentists are getting paid on each tooth they pull today. Yeah, to a certain degree. Hello, that's the best you got? I guess. Extension, and I don't even look the same, but I guess that's what could be both black. And I guess because he had some kind of locks. The scroll, like we talked about, the troll game got to move up. That's foolishness. That's like low hanging fruit. It's not even low hanging fruit because it's not even something you can eat. But anyways, so when we get on here, I guess that's kind of fine. I don't know. But anyways, so if we're talking about this stuff, when we're talking about what Yah has for us, and we're speaking on the fact that you've been told all these different things or whatever, let's look at this completely the way it's supposed to be. Let's look at this and get out of the foolishness, right? Hey, Grand Rising, how you doing, Vanessa? Let's get out the foolishness and let's look at this properly. If I'm in a dream state, right, and somebody says stay woke, they're saying pay attention or attention. Attention within itself, the word attention simply means attention means to be careful. When I was in the military, if somebody said attention or attention, right, same word, right, just different dialect of it, so to speak. If somebody says attention, you come to attention, right? I don't know if you can see in that whole body, basically what you come to attention, right? And you're waiting for a command. Nowadays, for real, there's a lot of commanders, there's a lot of captains, there's a lot of generals, etc., who use you standing in attention as a way to be able to get all this stuff on them. But really, if you're standing in attention, you're waiting for orders. I'm waiting for a command. Even if it's parade, if somebody says attention, everybody's together. If somebody says left, I'm waiting for them to say what? Fix. And I do it in the manner or at the cadence even that he or she is telling me, right? But attention, when somebody says attention, I'm waiting for command, right? You should never come to attention without first knowing that command is coming next. So not everybody should even be able to bring us to attention. Roll with me. I know somebody's like, we're all over the place, kind of, but it's going to come together in a second. Right? Whenever somebody calls us to attention, they should have the rank, which is why you should first of all need to know, study to show yourself approved. Do some of these persons you're even listening to about Abraham, about Kemet, about history, about Yahavah, about the kingdom, are they even worthy? Do they even know? Right? Are they even worthy of giving the command? Are they even, if the devil were to show up, if his imps were to show up, and the demon were to possess somebody, just like what happened in the Word, and somebody said, in the name of Paul, in the name of the Elohim of Paul, in the name of the Mashiach that Paul follows, I want you to come up at that person with the demon, look at you and say, Paul, I know, because I know his rank. And Yahavah, I know who's the general. But you, I don't know. And with that demon, beat the brakes off. See, and some of us are getting the brakes beat off us because we're not even in the right rank, or we're listening to persons that are in the right rank. When somebody calls you to attention, what is the command? See, a lot of persons, you don't even want to be called to attention. You don't want to use this word to be careful. You don't want to use this word to stop dreaming. You don't want to use this word to become what Yah told you to be. Some of you are just like, hey, I just want to gather up knowledge. I just want to say I know better. I just want to say I'm in a little group. I'm in a little, whatever, and I'm better than this person. No, we're calling the children at Yahavah Sha'al. We're calling Ban at Yahavah Sha'al together. Why? Because there's a reason. The brethren, right? The brethren call. There's a reason why the brethren are being called. They're being called because there's a command that's coming. So when the Most High says attention, when He says it through His servant, when He says it through your father, your mother, when He says it through your spiritual father, spiritual mother, whatever, when He says it through these persons, you need to know that these persons actually have access, which is why you should know the law greater than the scribes and the Pharisees. But you've been in a position for so long with persons who do not live by Yahavah's standard and therefore are understanding His law. Because in all they're getting, they should get what? Under the standard, understanding. So since these persons don't care about being under Yah, they're preaching and teaching a lot of stuff that feels great and gives you goosebumps, but does not cause you to be able to come out of this dream state. And so you can feel great and still be in the matrix. Right? You can think, right? Remember the movie The Matrix? You can think that you have hair, Keanu, but you bald. You can think that you're breathing in air walking around, but you're in pink goo. So we're trying to get persons to recognize and realize what's going on, because a lot of persons won't comprehend. When Christ comes back, just like they didn't know before, Romans chapter 9, at the end of it, it says, when Christ came, He became a stumbling stone of offense to us, even as the children of Israel, because we were not listening and in tune enough so that when the Most High said, it's time to move, when we got a 10, we didn't know what hut meant. When they said left, we didn't know we'd be ready for face. We didn't realize that we were supposed to be in attention. To be in attention means to be careful. To be attentive means to be careful, to be dialed in. Hey, there's a command coming up next. Are you ready for it? Right? A lot of you don't know. So whenever I was in the military, if I heard 10, I was waiting for it. Huh? Right? I was waiting for it because I knew the culture. If somebody says come to attention, now also too, watch this. If I heard somebody that didn't have authority say it, right? If it was somebody who was just playing around, they just walk in the room and they say, maybe I do it to play. But for real, if I knew you didn't have an authority, you were just joking around, I'm probably not getting up. I'm probably gonna stay in the bed or stay in my seat or whatever I'm doing. Why? Because you don't have the authority. You don't actually have access to this, right? And your lack of authority, your lack of access is problematic. Your lack of authority, your lack of access is problematic to what I'm trying to do. And we're listening to a lot of persons who are still caught up in the system, who are still dreaming, but are trying to give us, give us commands. They're still giving us commands even though they have no business doing so, or they have no authority to do so. That makes sense? How you doing, Laura? Thanks for being on. Thanks for being part of community, Prince_GJ. All right. So a lot of persons, they don't even have the authority. They don't have the authority, but they keep pushing commands on us that are not correct. How you doing, Toya? If I didn't say so already. All right. So many persons are asleep and do not know it. Right? This is why you need to be awakened. And then once you get awakened, stay woke. Keep your spirit, right? Your flesh man needs sleep, but your spirit man, right, can stay awake. Right? Make sure that you stay awake. You stay careful. You stay attention. And if you're in attention, make sure that you're ready for the command. And when the command is given, it's not given just for you to be able to say, I know what the command sounds like. It's given so that when the command is given, you will move. If you're still not moving when Yah command, we have a problem. Right? If you're still somebody who does not move when Yah says move, right? If you have all the faith that it's not speaking, but you don't move, then faith without works is causing you to be in the same position you've been. Come on? All right. So here we are. First things first, we got that. Sir, you need to turn that down, or you need to go somewhere. Turn it down. You can turn it down if you want to lay down the grass. If you want to go down a little bit more, then you do something over there. But it's like, let's do that, okay? All right. So we have to have those things in order. We have to have those things in order, okay? Now, yeah, if you're still not moving when He commands, something's up. All right? So some persons don't move and they stay in the dream state. Even when in the dream, Yah is saying, get up, wake up, come out of it. Stop being in the system. Become private. Why are you still public? Why are you still in the beast? Why are you still listening to satanic worship? Why are you still like studying this stuff? Why are you still, dressing up for Halloween, Hallows Eve, right? Why are you still getting ready for Christmas, Saturnalia, right? Why are you still doing these things? If you believe, right, that's what you believe, right? If you're standing, you're saying that you believe what I believe. Everybody has a right to walk by what they walk by. But even when you walk in what you walk, you're walking it correctly. If you don't believe what I believe, then fine. Or even walking it correctly, right? And at least admit, like that's the part for me. If you were a Christian and you're sitting here talking about I still celebrate Christmas, your Bible says, Jeremiah chapter 10, verses 1 through 5, you can't celebrate. It says, don't be like the heathens. Don't go into the woods. And don't hire an axeman. And don't have him chop down the tree. And don't have him bring it into your house. And don't nail it so it stands straight up. And don't paint it silver and gold. That's a heathen thing because they were afraid of the changing of seasons. That was something they did for Sol Invictus, which also is the same thing that you're talking about as far as winter solstice, or as far as the changing of the seasons, or as far as Saturnalia, all the same stuff. Right? So if that's your standard and you say I'm going to do it, all I ask is this: be honest about this thing, right? If you're in a dream, tell persons, I'd rather be in a dream state. I know that the truth means that I can't sleep inside of what is sin. But if I want to be covered in sin and stay warm, so I don't have to deal with the cold, harsh reality of truth that's around me, then just tell persons I feel like snuggling up under the mistletoe. And if you do that, I would have more respect for it, because then it's like, oh, okay, because we know what mistletoe actually is for. Like, we have reference points. We know what Saturnalia did. We know what Sol Invictus is. We know who Baldur is. We know where the S-O-N is the S-U-N came from. And it's not from Kemetic persons. It's not from Afrocentric belief systems, etc. We know where this is from. So if you want to keep heathen things, if you want to keep pagan things, if you want to keep things that are, Esau mentality, or Esau spirit, then just admit you're on the mountain in Ezekiel 35. Stop trying to say you're on the mountain in Ezekiel 34. That still is not on track, but we getting there. It's a lot. All right. So some persons are having a dream while they're awake. While they're asleep. Some persons are dreaming while they're awake. Or maybe we might even say the daydream or sleeping or doing what I'm about to say is a different state, right? But some of us are dreaming while we're awake. When you're dreaming while you're awake, we might say you're sleepwalking. How you doing, son? Breathing, esoteric art. How you doing? Right, hopefully I said that correctly. Right? How you doing, Elijah? Tatum, if I didn't say so already. Some might not recognize what you're actually doing is you're sleepwalking. Now, in sleepwalking, one can be asleep, having a whole different experience. Matter of fact, one can be having night terrors and nightmares, having a whole different experience, but they'll still interact with everything that is around them. They're in two realms of thought at the same time. Right? They can be in two realms of thought simultaneously. They're zombies, come on, right? They can be in a zombie state. Whether you believe zombies are real or not, I'm not totally against it, especially when it comes to those who are doing the zombie stuff in some of these West African nations. It's really more so in the Caribbean. But, if you believe they're real or not, whichever version of them you believe in, or if you need to be prepared for them or whatever, or you just playing around when you say it, whatever. Right? But some of you live like zombies. This is why Yahavah said in John 10:10, he says, the enemy comes but to steal, kill, and destroy. He does this because you sleep. But he says, I have come and you might have life more abundantly, right? And that word, it was in italics, that's why I skipped it. That you might have life and more abundantly. In italics, when somebody wrote that in. So, if Christ came that you might have life and more abundantly, but wait a minute, that would mean that he's come to somebody that's alive, but somebody that's not living. How can one be alive and not living? How can one be dead but alive? Is that possible? Even esoterically speaking, right? Is that possible? Figuratively speaking, is it possible to be dead and alive? Is it possible to walk around and do the same thing every day, but never be alive, right? Never truly have life? Is it truly possible to do that? Is it truly possible to be dead and alive at the same time? Very much so, right? Watch this. I used to work 2.5 jobs a day, okay? No lie, right? I was working easily you know, something like 85 to 90 hours a week, easy, at one point, right? And my half a job was basically my, you know, ministerial duties and stuff. And I was faithful at least about 2 times a week, you know, making sure I was in the church somewhere doing Bible study or preaching or playing music or showing up or supporting my pastor or whatever, right? Had no days off, right? You know, was able to get half a day off on for Sundays, right? So I know about a little bit about that life. How you doing, Sister Snap? And then Brother Gordon and any of the babies are watching, right? Um, so I know what it is to be in a position to where you are alive, but you're dead at the same time, right? I literally was going to, no matter what, and I didn't always make it home during the season of my life. So sometimes I literally was getting, I was sleeping in elevators, I was sleeping outside if it was warm enough. Sometimes even if it wasn't, it depended. If I couldn't get to the train on time to get back home, then I wasn't going to be able to make it home. So, um, but yeah, there's a lot of times where I spent, you know, all of my days knowing that I was going to wake up, I was going to go through the same minutia, I was going to go to sleep. I was wake up, go through the same minutia, and go to sleep. I was not going to get to see family. If I did, it was literally just going to be to see them passing, and I was heading to the bed. And I was told this was what made me a great man, which I believe a great man should provide for his family. That being said, I was told that, hey, you know, it wasn't nobody fighting me about it. They wanted to see me get better, but, you know, I was working minimum wage jobs. If I be honest, at that time, it got a little raise to where I was making $8 or something cents an hour versus $7.25. But still minimum wage, while, you know, others were working poor jobs, so they said, and they were making $15 an hour. So I was doing pretty bad as far as what you call capitalism and stuff. That being said, I never had anybody, you know, persons were like, hey, well, you know, you need to work, they need to get themselves together, they need to do that. That'll help them be better. That'll help them be a better man. Man, need to work, yada, 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 all this stuff, right? Cool, no problem. So I did what I was supposed to, and I pushed and I pushed and I pushed. But I realized when I was able to get into Yah's will and actually know what it was to have free will, not just free time, but free will, right? Where I could decide what I'm going to do, what I'm going to be faithful to, what I'm going to be connected to. Is this what Yah wants from me, etc. My life has gone in completely different ways, and it's not because I'm not busy. I'm still busy. It's not because you know, I'm poor. I make more money than I ever had before, and I praise Yah for that and what He's doing for myself and my family. But what I learned is that one can be so faithful to this world that they'll never open their eyes to what freedom looks like. Right, and today, once again, if you were joining us late, today's topic of discussion, we're talking about what is it? We're talking about the American dream, dot dot dot, and its side effects. Because if one is asleep all the time, did you know that there's side effects to that? If you were to never wake up, or if you were in a trance-like state, for those of you who, what is that called when persons have a hard time going to sleep or whatever? Um, if you're somebody who has a tough, thank you, insomnia. If you have a, if you deal with an insomniac, there are times where the person is there, but they're not there, right? They're aware of what's going on, right? But they're not there. How you doing, Brother Michael? So you have a lot of persons that are insomniacs. They have not learned how to. They're in it. They might even see some things going on, right? But they're not able to turn stuff up. But somebody can be awake and sleep at the same time. They can be dead and alive at the same time. How you doing, Rosemary? Thanks for being part of the community. A lot of persons don't recognize this, right? So here, a lot of persons are going through this, or sleepwalking through this American dream, right? You're sleepwalking. You can identify. See, some of you are closer. You can identify what's real, but you're still asleep, right? So persons who've had night terrors, especially, I'll use the example of maybe some of you know about persons who've been in like Vietnam Wars, the Korean War, stuff like that, right? I had a grandfather that was in the Korean War, and he would every once in a while, I never saw it, but apparently when, you know, before I was born and stuff, he still had a lot of night terrors and stuff, and so he would wake up and he would have these moments, or he would even be going through his day and have these moments to where if he heard, you know, a pop, right? Sometimes happens with me a little bit as a veteran, but you know, you hear a pop or you hear something that sounds like a gunshot, his mind immediately, even though he was really in This time, he immediately started freaking out. He immediately started looking for something, pretending he had a gun or a knife or something like that, because something in his past, right, triggered him to come out of what was real and to go back into something else, or to go to something that's not best for him, or something that actually messes with him. But he would be in both places at the same time. He was functioning, but he wasn't functioning, right? He was alive, but he wasn't really alive. He was thinking he might be killed, but he wasn't really going to be killed. He was still alive, but he was in this moment of in between, right? He was still in this moment of in between. And a lot of persons are caught up, right, in the American dream. See, the American dream is false, and a lot of you guys are even trying to fight your way out of it, but you have a little something that happens and you get stuck in it. See, the American dream can mess you up a lot of different ways, and there's side effects when you're in there. Watch this. Here's one of the side effects. If you're dealing with night terror and you never are able to wake up from the night terror, although you're going through the real, although you're transitioning, although you got other stuff to do, but you're still dealing with a lot of stuff that came out of your trauma, and guess what? One of the biggest things that affects us is called stress. Right? If I'm trying to hold on to something that I know is wrong, I know there's PTSS, I know there's post-traumatic slave syndrome, I know there's PTSD, I know there's post-traumatic stress disorder or post-traumatic slave disorder. I know that there's trauma and that we as a people have not taken time out to actually get our treatment. We haven't made time to get our healing. All we've been told is, well, if Yah's word is true, then just stop, don't forget everything that's ever happened. And yes, try your best not to harp on those things, but let's have honest dialogue. If our people went through thousands, I know you just are dealing with hundreds. Let's deal with hundreds just to make it nice. Hundreds of years of oppression just because of who we are and a person trying to keep us away from who we are, right? But we're trying to sleepwalk. We're trying to say, well, okay, we know who we are, but we're not going to deal with the fact that we're still stressed out, right? In reality, we know who we are, but at the same time, in the dream world, right? That wall is not a wall. That wall is something trying to attack me. That child is not a child. That child is somebody who represents Charlie back in the day, right? We're in that night terror stage. We're sleepwalking. We're going through. We're not quite dead. We're not quite alive. We're not quite awake. We're not quite asleep. It's difficult. A lot of persons are sleepwalking through this. And when you dream long enough, and while you're sleepwalking, it comes with side effects. See, you know there have been persons that have sleptwalked, and in reality, they could move around everything that was in there. If there was a counter in their way, if there was a couch, if there was a person, they could interact with it. But in the dream world, they might have thought these things were evil. And so you know there have been persons who have accidentally, no lie, have accidentally off persons in their family because they were having a night terror, but they were walking through it at the same time. They were all the way awake, but all the way asleep simultaneously, and in walking through it, they had all these night terrors and issues, and when somebody popped up, they thought that was a monster, they thought that was a goblin, they thought that was this, they thought that was that, and so they would off somebody. You know, one of the side effects that happens when you're still trying to live the American dream, right, but while you're still experiencing the American nightmare, one of the things that happens when you're sleepwalking through the system and you haven't been awakened to what Yah's desires and what the truth is yet in your life, you will start to off persons accidentally in your life. Because in the dream, you swear that that's your enemy, but in reality, that's your brother, that's your sister. Oh, we going somewhere. Did somebody catch that? That's a salah right there. I'm gonna say it again before I take this drink real quick. This drink of water. All right. I'm gonna say that again. There's somebody out there who's been going through the American dream for so long, right? That while you're awake, right, or in the part of you that's awake, the reality, you can react to who's actually there in reality, but in your sleep, you think that's your enemy, and so in your sleep, you might accidentally have somebody catch a stray that's awake. Salah. Hallelujah, somebody. I know that's tough. It's tough for a lot of persons. It's tough. It's tough to have honest dialogue about this. But there's a lot of persons that catch strays when you've been all the way awake and all the way asleep at the same time. Sometimes persons catch strays. This is why when you're all the way awake and all the way asleep as a man, right? Right? Whatever you want to call yourself as a man, guess what? Sometimes your wife catches strays. That's Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 54 and 55. We just went over that yesterday. We went through verses 54 through 68. Some of our wives are catching strays because we're trying to be all the way in Yah, but somehow trying to deal with all the way in the world. When we're supposed to be in the world but not of it, which means that even when I'm in the world, I must still be fully awake as to who I am. The second that I'm in the world and of the world is the second that I'm is that what is it? The artificial person and the natural person are trying to be one, and that causes confusion. Right? The artificial person can do business on behalf of the natural person if the natural person allows it. But the artificial person thinking that they're the same as the natural person, or the natural person thinking they're the same as the artificial person, something's up. You see that? It's a whole different thought process. It's a whole different reality. Right? We have been trying to figure out, how do I exist? Watch this. How do I exist to where I can say that Yah wants every human that's ever existed, his will is for them to be fully in him and to get the kingdom. And at the same time, I can tell persons that racism is real. And somebody thinks that somebody has a problem with that, because in order for me to say racism is real, your mindset is, well, I have to be one with the artificial, which is that race is not a social construct, blah blah. I know race is a social construct, right? But it manifests in reality. And reality is basically how you perceive what is real. So the only reason why some of us don't think that Israel is real, is because of what? Is because that you don't even recognize that there is this social construct that is manifest and causes persons to say the first thing they're looking for an Israelite is the color of their skin. Right? Now we know that we can't deny color, because color is what allows you to know if you're about to hit the water or not. Right? If everything's the same color, I mean, I know in black and white you can tell, okay, maybe that's where the color is, but it makes it a lot more difficult in black and white than you can when you have color. I can tell if I'm dealing with a male duck, right, or a female duck if I see the color. I can tell if it's a male peacock or a female peacock, even if you take off the long feathers, because on the tail, because I can still see the color difference. It doesn't mean that I think the male peacock can exist without the female peacock. But see, we're so sleek. So watch this. The American dream is one that tries to tell you that color doesn't matter, even though the American dream is based off of the back of those who are colored. If what I'm saying doesn't register true, then there can't be any such thing as the one drop rule. Right? You guys know what the one drop rule is, correct? Are we aware of what the one drop rule is? Is everybody aware when I say the one drop rule? If you have one drop of black blood in you, then you're black. Which, by the way, means that everybody is black. If that's the rule, right? That would actually make you one if the one drop rule wasn't a lie. But you're getting the lie and the truth at the same time. But guess what? If you get a lie and the truth, put them in the same basket, guess what? Or if you get a lie and the truth, right? Watch this. If I have a cup of truth, right? Remember we talked about this word solution, solute, right? What is a solute, right? How do you get a solution? Okay, if I have a glass of righteousness, of truth, but I put in a package, I take up my packet, shake it up and everything, I put some sugar in there, and I put a packet of lie in there. It's still a bucket of water of truth, but you wouldn't call it just truth, right? You would call it truth aid or something, right? Because if I put Kool-Aid in water, you don't call it water with Kool-Aid in it, you call it Kool-Aid, right? That's the solution, the solute, right? And then once it's stirred up, it becomes what you call a solution. You hear what I'm saying? We said we're equal shade, we are all shades. How can we be equal shades? Watch this. See, this is why I'm going through a particular prison. And I'm not mad at anybody. This is why we have to have these conversations. Person, I want to be honest. All right, big game. You ready? Is anybody on earth equal to anybody else on earth? This is why even the Constitution says that they don't believe it by themselves anyway, right? Because they don't even believe everybody's a man, right? Because if they did, then all men being created equal meant that there wouldn't be chattel slaves and there wouldn't be Native Americans that would be savage and all that. So we know that they didn't believe all men were equal. But are there any two things that exist on earth that are equal? Are there any two persons that have the same fingerprint that exists? You see what I'm saying? Equality is a myth. Does your Bible even say that there's anybody in there that's equal. Equal rights is a myth. Now I get what person is saying. You want equal rights, you're saying you want the same rights, but equal means something is the same as something else. So if you're saying you want the same rights, you're not saying I want the same rights because we're equal. What you're saying is I want what you as a people get to be the same as what I as a people get. If that's the truth, if we all get the same thing no matter what, then that makes us equal, right? That's equality. Equality is a myth, though, because the Bible is not written to make sure that everybody is the same. The Bible is written to make sure that those who want to be of the same nationality live by the same laws, the same principles, the same statutes, the same love, the same commandments, but it's not written so that everybody will be the same. If that's the case, then the son shouldn't honor his father as his father because the son and the father are equal. That's why even in what you call the Trinity, right? That's why even in what you call the Trinity, how you doing, your beautiful tribe? What you call the Trinity, that's why Holy Spirit, right, the Lord can lead Yahavah into the wilderness. But Yahavah can be the person to say, when I leave, Holy Spirit come. That's why the Father, right, the Son, and the Holy Spirit can work together as one, while at the same time, they all have to bow down to each other's position. Right? You see? So equal, yes, they might be equal as far as having the equal responsibility or equal. They don't have equal responsibility, but they have equal thing, but they're not equal, they're not the same. Even when we say Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, they're not the same. They have the same title, all three work together as one, three different manifestations of the same being, but they are not equal. You are flesh, you are spirit, you are body. Is your flesh equal to your spirit? Is your flesh equal to your spirit? The flesh and the spirit can work together. The flesh should be in subjection to the spirit, but the flesh and the spirit are not one. Or I'm sorry, they are one, but they're not the same. Equal is talking about they're the same, right? Right? My flesh is not equal to your flesh. I don't look the same as you. Should I be treated like you? Yes. Should we be both trying to follow the same law? Yes. Can we follow the law equally? No. See, equal is I don't know. I might be going on a tangent because I'm not sure. I hope this is tracking. Right? This is one of those burden of the word this is one of those burden of the word of the Yahavah for Israel moments. Right? If you know what Malachi is actually called, you get that, right? So this is one of them moments, right? But persons don't recognize what equality is or how it even works, right? 1 plus 1, like even equal. We talked about this before and talked about denominations. This is why your denominations can't be different, right? You shouldn't have something called different denominations, right? You shouldn't have something called different denominations. If you have something called different denominations, then you are actually out of tune with Yah. Because what is a denominator of a fraction? Right? Equity is not the same as equality either. Come on, right? Well, see, watch this. Why does 1 plus 1 equal 2? 1 plus 1 equals 2 because 1 over 1 plus 1 over 1 equals 2 over 1. As long as all of them have the same denominator, same denomination, then we can actually add things up. But if you say 1 over 4, right, this is what your different denominations are. If one were to go 1 over 4 plus 1 over 2 equals 1 over 3, but then by definition, you have different denominators, which has gotten you to what? An unequal or an unrighteous or or just plainly said, a wrong answer, right? So plainly said, you guys are doing stuff that doesn't equate, that doesn't add up, because you're still in this dream state thinking that we can be in this place or even like caping up for something called equality that's mythical. Equality is a myth. I know you don't like it. Equality is a myth, at least the way you think of equality. There are no two persons on earth that can be treated equally. There's laws in the books to protect women. There's laws in the books to protect men. There's laws on the books to protect manhood. There's laws in the books to say that I can't dress certain ways because I'm not trying to be mistaken for a woman. This is cultural. Now, some of you are going to take that, see, this is why we hate. No. If you live of a standard and of a culture and of a community to where you guys do that, you guys do that. Right? But I'm not living by that right. It's not something that is for me, right? In my culture, I'm not equal to woman. Woman can never be equal to man. We're supposed to work together and become one, but we become one, right, because of our denomination, not one because of our numerator. Right? The denominator should be Israel, or the denominator even more so should be Christ, right? So the numerator on top. This is the reason why the Roman Catholic Church doesn't move the same as the Eastern Orthodox Church. This is why the AME Church doesn't move the same as the Baptist Church. This is why the Methodist Church doesn't move the same as the Episcopalian Church, because their denominator, or what they have on the bottom, is what they're trying to make themselves. They're trying to say they are the foundations, they are the doctrine, but the word is the doctrine. Remember, the word doctrine means instruction. So the word is the instruction. Who is the word? You see it? Who is the word? Who is the word? The word is Yeshua Mashiach, or is Yeshua HaMashiach, or Yahushua HaMashiach, or who some of you still calling that J word Christ, right? That is the denominator. There is no denomination. If he's the word, and the word was made flesh, and it's Aleph Bet or Aleph Bayit, which is Father-Son connection, and it's Holy Spirit that guided all this stuff and put all this stuff together to be able to write the word, so that when the word showed up, we should have known the word by what he was telling us the whole time. If you're making anything else your denominator or denomination, that means nothing ever adds up. Right? Nothing ever adds up. So nothing has been adding up for us because the American dream doesn't add up, because the American dream says that somebody else has to be your denominator. Somebody else has to be your Adon. Somebody else has to be your Lord. Matter of fact, now you guys are so against the Lord, not knowing what capital L-O-R-D in the Bible, or all caps L-O-R-D, or all lowercase L-O-R-D, and not doing research as what is what. Some of you are so against the title Lord, right, that you don't want to call the Most High your Lord. When the word Lord is not saying Baal, but some of you would do that and not research why somebody's called Baal, or when they were called Baal. What was it? The latest one I read, I think, was Jeremiah. I might have the wrong places. Jeremiah 23:27, I believe, where they were making it a point to be like, well, Jeremiah was actually saying that Baal is Lord. They're not saying that Baal is Lord. It was saying that you guys, if you're not careful, you're going to make Baal your Lord. Some of you have, right? But we don't research, we don't do certain things. So you're living the American dream, and some of you are living it now. Instead of like Christian nationalism, now you don't want to live as a Christian. What you've done is a lot of you have traded in what you used to wear for something that's a little more righteous looking. But that being said, you're still living like a Christian. You just want to use different names. And I'm glad you're using different names. But in order for you to recognize what a name is, now we got to get to authority. So we talked about the American dream. We talked about what a dream is, what a nightmare is, what a night terror is. Somebody can be awake and have a dream. Somebody can be asleep and have a dream. Either way, we want to stop living the American dream, because one should dream. One should have dreams. One should have visions. But we don't want to live by the American dream, the American doctrine, the American instruction. Because the American dream, so-called American dream, for the so-called American, is not for everybody, but it's for the one who runs America. Because America is a corporation. See, now let's go back into that corruption piece. If America is not even a country, but you think that the American dream is for those that are in the country of the United States of America, but if the United States specifically, is not a country, then that dream is a lie. Just that in and of itself should make us stop being so quick, right? To go against the red, the black, and the green, to go against Afrocentric thought, to go against the Moorish thought, to go against the thought process of those who are trying to be like the Most High. We know for a fact, according to the United States Corporation, we know for a fact, right, that America is not a country. Right? We know for a fact. What did I say? For a fact. If it was something that like, okay, maybe. No. For a fact. This is the fact. I say this every live just about, but I'm gonna say it again. If you're taking notes, take notes. Okay? You ready? I'm gonna give you the notes. Here it is. 28. This is for you to look up. You can get in your Google machine, your computer, your phone, whatever. This is for you to look up. Because a lot of persons just go, Here's another Afrocentric brother, blah blah. Oh, he tripping. He ain't making no sense. He doesn't live this life. He say that. I'm about to give you this is the game, not the sport. Sport is for fun. We're talking about the game. All right. I'm about to give you game. This is the basics. Basics. Okay. Some of you who taken sovereignty courses and stuff with us before and stuff that we do offline and stuff like that, you already know how this stuff works. I'm gonna just give you some more basics. You ready? 28. Look this up in your little Google machine. This is United States law, United States code. So I'm not making this up. This is something that is law. All right. See, I just made a bold statement for some. Some of you should know this by now. But the bold statement: the United States is not a country, right? That's what I just said. Okay. Google this real quick, or use Pride or whatever you're using. 28. USC. USC stands for United States Code, or think football, USC, whatever. 28, USC, next part, 3002. 3002, 3002. All right, space, next part, 15, 15. And then after that, A, as in olive, or alpha, or apple. Okay? I'm going to say it again. 28, 28, USC, as in United States Code. 3002, that's 3002. 15, that's 15. And then subsection A, or in parentheses, put the letter A, lowercase a. One more time, I'll say it one more again. This is just the basics. This is the first time that some of y'all even thinking about United States Code, right? 28, USC, 3002, 15, subsection A, or A in parentheses. When you get there and you read it, there's a subsection A, there's a subsection B, there's a subsection C. All right? I want you guys to tell me what it says. What does it say in subsection A? It'll tell you the United States, this is United States Code. It says the United States is, then it says subsection A. What does that say next? The United States is a what? The United States Corporation, number one, is a what? What's the first thing that it says? You guys tell me in the chat. I don't want to take responsibility. We're just going to roll through. Subsection B is going to be long. I don't even go through subsection B as long as we do today, even in class, but we're going to go through it long today. So subsection A, it says that it's what? It's a corporation. It's a corporation. Right? Now remember this, corpse. Corpse. Corporation. Corpse is something that's dead. It has no life. Right? Now what did it say? The devil cometh but to steal, but to kill, and to destroy. That's to take away life. He says, but I have come that you might have life. This means that if you're in the public, the word public also is a word for government or govern, right? What governs you, right? And also it is a word that you might use, if you're using a biblical word, you would use beast. So when you're looking for what governs that person, you're looking for the beast. You're looking for whatever beast they're under, right? There are 4 beasts or 4 cherubims that are actually used in Revelation 4 that you should look at it how Yah governs. But then by the time you get to Revelation chapter 12 and 13, we know that that's a satanic government, right? In Daniel chapter 7, Daniel chapter 2, it talks about a satanic government that you should be aware of. Daniel 11 talks about a satanic government. Isaiah 9 talks about the government that Yahavah is bringing on his shoulders, though, right? So when we see biblically, especially in dreams and visions, right? So we're not talking about the American dream and the American doctrine. We're talking about Yahavah's dream and Yahavah's doctrine, because American dream, it comes with too many side effects. You know, somebody sleep all the time, eventually they'll become weak. Somebody never gets up out of bed and they sleep and they're dreaming at the same time. And guess what? That person, you know, we might as well call it a coma. Some of you are in a coma. When you're in a coma and you can't move, even if eventually you become awake, but we can't get you awake soon enough, you'll be somebody that shrivels and somebody that becomes frail, and you'll have, you know, muscle atrophy and all types of stuff, right? So it's going to be hard for you to move if you don't wake up. So let's go back here once again. 28 USC 3002 15 subsection A. The America is a corporation. The United States of America. Or not even the United States of America. I'm saying it incorrectly. It actually said the United States. So especially when you see the United States, especially in all caps, you know they're talking about what? A corporation. Right? Because there is, at least there was, right? There's remnants of it left, but there is a country, or was a country, however you want to look at it, that was called the United States of America. Still wasn't done correctly, but we can say there was a country that was that. But especially once you get past the 1930s, 1940s, and really for real, even way before that, right? Almost 100 years before that, once you get past the 14th Amendment, from that point on, There really is, most persons don't even know the difference between an uppercase citizen, C citizen, and a lowercase c citizen. That uppercase C citizen used to actually have ranks. That lowercase c, right? They mess with it. They didn't even show you. Like, you don't even realize that there's a difference. If you go read the Constitution, you'll see that citizen is always uppercase until you get to the 14th Amendment, and then from that point on, it's lowercase, which means something has happened legally, and you're not even aware. By the time you hit the 1940s, right, and they taking the gold, and now they're taking away most of your rights to actually think for yourself, and a lot of you think you have to have a birth certificate to exist. By the time they do that, they kind of shut you out the game. But if you do your research, you'll see uppercase C citizen for all of these amendments. Then you get to the 14th, lowercase c. They're playing right in our face. Right? They're playing right in our face. They're telling you outright, you're not what you think you are. And many of you don't even realize sometimes it's simple as just redoing a couple different pieces of paperwork, like even just simply your passport being done correctly. All of a sudden on wax, behind the scenes, in the system, and even a lot of stuff you can take with you, and especially mess around, start getting your business together and get your trust and your LLC or whatever you're using. All of a sudden, next thing you know, you're a whole different person. You can live a whole different life. You can be treated in a whole different manner. Right? But 28 USC 300215 subsection A tells us this is a corporation. A corporation is an artificial or dead person. Corpse is an artificial or dead person. Right? Watch this. If Pastor Kofi were to lose his life today, and you guys were to get a sermon tomorrow from somebody named Pastor Kofi, and it was AI, would that be, even if they used my voice, even if they used some of my teachings, even if they didn't get a word wrong out of my teachings and put it together and gave you something, would that be a natural sermon or an artificial sermon? I'm trying to teach you. Right? Would that be a natural sermon or an artificial sermon? Would that be a natural person or an artificial person? Right? Would that be a live person or a dead person? Whenever you're using something that's artificial, you got to realize that you got to connect with the fact that something is dead. Right? If there's laws for the artificial person, you must recognize that there was something that once was alive and now it's dead. If you're living in an artificial version of marriage, which is by definition pornography, a lot of you don't know that, but what the word that you guys use for fornication does not mean shacking up before you get married. It means an artificial version of marriage. That word that you would use in the Greek would be porneia, which is where you get the word pornography from. That's what it means to be pornographic, is to actually have false images of marriage in front of your face. Right? That's what we're talking about. False image of marriage, and in the Bible, sex is marriage, marriage is sex. That's the context, right? So if you are in an unlawful version of what Yah has determined marriage is, right? If you are in an unlawful version of what Yahavah has determined marriage is, then guess what? It is an artificial marriage. It is dead. Right? Because you have faith in something that's dead. If you have something with faith that's dead, the only way to make it alive is to believe that Christ, right? That Christ is your Lord, which means you have the same logic of him, and that when he was resurrected, if you would have the same logic of Christ, then whatever in Christ was resurrected will be resurrected in your life. You see that? What Christ has said will be resurrected in your life. Yeah, so much so, off the sauce, just to let you know, welcome, by the way. So much so, off the sauce, if you didn't catch it, he made a statement here, which is a great statement. He said they think capital only means when you're talking about money, not letters. Right? Not realizing that capital, you are the capital. That's a great point. So much so that a lot of you don't even realize in your Bible, when the word is all caps, you need to know that that's not even the original word or the original name. I was just telling you that with all caps, L-O-R-D, right? Right? In English, L-O-R-D, right? The name, right? If it's in all caps, they're actually telling you that's not original. So whenever you see all caps L-O-R-D, you have to know that's Yahavah. Right? But they put in all caps Lord. Why? Because they can change whatever your Lord is, but they even still, so you have to realize how law works. If somebody does something, even in legalese, even if they're lying to you, they have to, in order, if somebody doesn't want to get sued, and a lot of you don't know, to sue is to sue for peace. How you doing? It's Papa's dad. Thanks for being part of the community. To sue means to sue for peace. So in order to get to Shalom, somebody has to sue or somebody has to say something is owed, something must be paid. And once the payment is right, then I can go ahead and have peace. So you couldn't have peace if Christ himself, right, had not made sure that he picked up the tab because you were sued. Watch this, a lot of persons don't know this. You were sued by the Father, but the Father sent the Son to be the only thing that could be payment for you. See, a lot of we watch so many movies, and in the American dream, we're allowed to watch movies and stuff that we know are fake and are false, right? That's right, he's a redeemer. If something's redeemed, it's reconsidered. So you have been reconsidered as free only because Christ paid what was sued for it. And we've talked about this before, but it's been a little while. So just in case, you haven't heard this before, this might sound crazy to some of you. That's okay, right? This might sound crazy to some of you, but that's okay. If somebody sues for peace, or well, let me do it like this. When somebody sins, a lot of you have taught stuff like that. Your belief is that the devil and the Most High are always at war with each other, so much so, and that the devil somehow has like some kind of ability to actually fight the Most High. And so every time that the Most High gets somebody to come to heaven or whatever, he's winning. And whenever the devil gets somebody to come to hell, he's winning. But ultimately somehow the Most High will win this long battle, because that's what you were taught. That's how we look at it. The reality is that the devil has no power outside of what he's given. And Yah already took all the power that he had, right, outside of it, right, as far as heaven is concerned. The devil has no power out of heaven. But watch this. Here's the thing that a lot of you don't know. Once again, we got to get to these terms like name, authority, all this stuff. You ready? Okay? Oh, TikTok I got to be careful. I can't say the name. You saying this place, mic check real quick on all platforms. Can everybody tell me real quick, if you don't mind? Can you hear me all right? Can you see me all right? Is it everybody is lagging? Is it lagging for some? I'm prepared today if I need to bounce off some different signals real quick. I just need to know where I need to bounce it. It's lagging real bad? Okay. All right. I'm going to try to put you on something else. You can see in here, your back is light lag. Okay. Well, I'm going to try to go to something else real quick. Y'all let me know. Not sure if it's going to work or not, but y'all let me know. Okay. All right, we're trying again. Can y'all see me? Can you hear me okay? Yes, no, maybe so? Is it better? Worse? Is it better, worse now? Clear over there? Okay, thank you. It's better? Yes? Better over there? Over here is better? Okay. Over here we're all right? Okay, thank you. Okay, cool. All right. Okay, better. All right. So I might have to play around back and forth with it a little bit, so you might have to deal with some of that, but I'll try to 10-4. Cool. Con. I'm on. All right. So I might have to let it go back and forth a little bit because they're trying to mess with us too through the platforms, but as long as y'all can hear me, see me okay, enough to get this word, that's all I'm really concerned about. So, anyways, going back to, I'm sorry, somebody help me. What was the last thing exactly I was saying? I know where I was, but what was the last exact thing I was saying, please? You with us? Okay. Can anybody just give me like a piece of the sentence or anything? I know what point I was making, but I'm not sure where I was in the point. We were finishing up corporation, artificial person, all that stuff. Okay, thank you. Capital letters, Yahavah and Lord. Right? So a lot of persons don't know when you're talking about this stuff, these things matter as far as even like when you see all caps LORD. Or, watch this, one of the things that helps us with, and thank you, Sister Monique, one of the things that helps us with a lot of the teaching, a lot of where we are, you might miss, is when we are in, forgive me y'all, one of the things that helps us is, with all caps, let's do this real quick. Go to Revelation. Go to Exodus chapter 3. We're going to do verses 14 and 15. I'm not going to quote it exactly, but I want you guys to see it. I'm going off the dome, so I'm going to mess up a couple words, but I want you guys to be able to see what I'm saying, and I want you to be able to, if you can, go to your concordance right away too, to see if what I'm saying is true. This is the difference. This is why we have to know not only etymology, but we have to know what names are. We have to know what culture is. We have to know, if I see something all caps, that's not just a new way, but an English way of saying what something is. How you doing, Slice? So once you have it, right, just let me know. you're there, I got it, I'm with you, amen, etc. Ashe, etc. I just want to make sure that you have it before we go into how you doing, brothers. Once again. So, Exodus chapter 3, verse 14. For those of you who can get it, I just want to make sure I don't want anybody missing this, or if you're on the recording, listen to this. Please, man, please, sir, when you have the opportunity, go through, watch it, listen. Okay? All right, we got one Ashe. We got any Ashes, amen. I got it with you, listening, etc. It's not the gadgets, the platform, probably. Yeah. All right. Well, I got enough. I got enough across the platforms, across it. All right, you ready? Okay. So peep game. Peep game. Exodus 3:14. Moses is asked, "What is your name?" Going back to Kemet. And a lot of persons don't know this. You can find this part out in Exodus chapter 6, but a lot of persons might not know this. But nobody actually knew his name. He was known by title only, even though his people were named after him, not knowing his name. So they had Yah in their name, but nobody actually has had to confirm that his name is Yahavah yet. Even if Yahavah or Yahuwah, etc., is mentioned in Parashat or Genesis, right? You will not actually see anybody know that is his name, right? They know him by the title at that point as Elohim Shaddai. Now Moses, because he's writing Genesis after the fact, puts Yahavah in here, there, etc., especially in certain places like Genesis 2, talking about creation, talking about the name, etc., to make sure you know whose authority it's in. But they didn't know him by that name, right? Hey, how you doing, Brother Yachasav, right? Brother Lamar. So they didn't know him by that authority. Name means authority. So they didn't know his Shem, his name, his Sham, his authority. But they knew who he was, right? They had a relationship, but they still didn't know his name. Moses asked the question in Exodus 3. He says, I'm going back to Pharaoh. And he says, I know the culture. Over there, they don't mess around. Everybody, you got to know somebody's name. Your name is the authority, right? So this might have been hidden the man, this and that, or whatever. We know you was Elohim. Moses knew who Elohim was. I know this weird thing that y'all be thinking Moses didn't know he was an Israelite because of 10 Commandments and other movies they put out, like Prince of Egypt and all that. Reality is Moses was suckled off the breast of his mother. It was his sister who actually helped him to get saved. Moses would have known who he was, right? That being said, nobody knew his name, so Moses asked his name because in Kemet, your name is a big deal. And really, even in the kingdom, your name is a big deal, but nobody knows you by your name, at least not us, right? So he says, what is your name? A lot of you believe, even to the point to where some persons don't even use Yahavah or Yahuwah or Yahweh or Yahweh or Yahavah, etc. Some persons actually use this name, Achayah or Chayah. A lot of, maybe you've seen somebody say that before. That's because the this is taken out of context because persons don't know how to read into it. So because it looks like if you first of all, you should read things holistically, right? But if you just look at Exodus 3:14, you might think that he says his answer to what is my name is, I am that I am. So tell Pharaoh that I am has sent thee, right? And you will take that as, oh, his name is I am. Even to the level that we have now seen that a lot of motivational speakers will tell you, don't, and even preachers now will tell you, and maybe you've heard your grandparents and parents say, please do not say I am before anything, because whatever you say I am means it will become, because I am is the name of the Most High. These are persons who try to say God is the universe and stuff like that. So you should never say I am sick because you're saying God make me sick. That's what they teach. When the reality is the Most High, Yahavah Elohim. If you come to him and say, I am sick, you're telling him that because you believe that when you tell him I am sick, he will make you well, which means to tell the Most High I am sick is ultimately say, I believe you will make me well, right? But if you're not aware of this, you'll have somebody go on this long tangent and talk about his name is I am and all this stuff, right? It's a falsehood, right? The reality is that this word, this thing says I am that I am, and then I am has sent thee. They both are the same word. When it says I am that I am, and it says I am has sent me, they're using the same word both times. And it's in all caps because somebody is trying to get you to not look at what the proper word is and change it up. Or maybe somebody's trying to say that is his name. Who knows? Right? But we know all caps gives it away. So when we look at it in all caps, when we look at this word, what does it actually mean? Achayach. Achayach actually refers to it is, basically it is, or it is what it is, or it be, right? So in other words, when Moses said, what is your name? The Most High didn't actually give him his name in Exodus 3:14. Roll with me, right? Because in Exodus 3:14, he tells you, well, basically, I am that I am, but really it is what? Achaya. So it is what it is. What does that mean? Well, when Moses, you came in here, you took your feet up, you took your shoes off your feet because it's holy. I'm holy. All right? You're going to put your cane on the, or you're going to put your staff on the ground and pick it up. It's going to be a serpent. You're going to throw the serpent down. It's going to become a staff. Right? Or you're going to straighten it out, whatever. You're going to put your hand in your coat and pull it out. It's going to be leprous. You're going to put it back in. It's going to be fine. It's going to be healed. I am healing, but I'm also the one that's powerful enough to make you leprous. He's going to do all these different things for you. Right? He's going to do all these different things. He's going to tell us all these different things. Right? And then he says, so just tell Pharaoh what it is, what it be has sent you. What I'm about to show you, what I'm about to give you, all the gifts, right? Show them the power that I have. Tell them that I'm a bush that burns but is not consumed. Tell Pharaoh that's who has sent thee. However, now what's the next verse say? See this Lord God. Now, whenever you see Lord God in your Bible, you have to know that's always Yahavah Elohim, or some of you would still say Jehovah Elohim or something like that, right? But he says, right? But he says in Exodus 3:15, he says, moreover, so more important than what you have seen or what it be or what it is that I told you to tell Pharaoh, he says, moreover, since you asked me the question direct, what is my name? He said, moreover, tell him that my name is Lord God, which translates into the original, or at least originally was, Yahavah Elohim. And he says from this point on, and he says, tell him that I am the same Elohim, right, with this name Yahavah, I'm the same one, because Pharaoh, once again, would have known what the name Elohim, or what the characters are, or what the person of Elohim was, even if he didn't want to recognize it, right, and give it authority, he would have known this because other pharaohs knew who Elohim was, right? So he makes it a point to say, so, but moreover, more important than that, tell him my name is Yahavah Elohim, and if you need to track and trace me, he said, I am the same Yahavah who is known as Elohim Shaddai to who? To Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. And then he says after that, just in case somebody wants to tell you these things don't matter, right? Because some persons will come behind and tell us, oh, this stuff doesn't matter. He says, and I want you to also get this, beloved. He says, and tell Moses, you tell Pharaoh, because remember, you're going to Pharaoh to tell him that he needs to let my people go worship me so that they can learn of me again. It's been too long since they haven't known of me. That was what Moses' original assignment was, correct? He said, I know Pharaoh's heart will get hard. I'll allow it to get hardened. That being said, your original request is to say, hey, let my people go into the wilderness 60 miles away, 3 days journey, that they might be able to learn about me again and worship me. Remember, that's what he sent. And so he asked about the name, the authority he should send him in. So when he does it, oh, you're fine. So he says, I want you to know about these names. I want you to know this name. Tell him that. Tell him who I'm over Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, which means I'm over Israel, which means I'm over Joseph, right? And this thing that you have enslaved my people. You know who I be. My people know who I be. Now they know my name, and you know my name on top of it, right? And he said, so I want everybody to know my name. But then he says, on top of that, right, when you tell the children of Israel my name, because really it's actually more focused to us than it was at Pharaoh. That being said, so they know who I am, and they can trace me back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, so they know who's coming for him. He says, on top of that, make sure that you also, moreover, verse 15, moreover, right, and tell him my name, tell him where I come from, and then he ends by saying, this name is a memorial, is a monument, is a what? Memorial, is a monument, is a what? Is a memorial, or is a monument to what? To my people, for eternity, forever. So if anybody says they are of Israel, or in the kingdom of heaven, etc., and you say that his name doesn't matter, or his name is not Yahavah, his title is not Elohim, then you are not his people. So you can be in this dream where you think that in the corporation you're supposed to be, but no. If you're out of the corporation, you got to be in the corporation, but not of it. So while you're in this corpse, in this artificial person, right, artificial corporation, you have to still be able to be private enough, or at least cognizant enough, or not be in a dream state while you're walking, be in a daydream so much that you cannot recognize truth. Right? So if you don't recognize Yahavah Elohim, you cannot be his nation or his people. Period. Right? I'm not arguing over the dialect thing. I'm just roll with the context, please. Right? So Exodus 3:14, Exodus 3:15, you have to You have to see that. It says it there clearly, and it does the all caps thing, and then the uppercase stuff, all that, letting you know that, hey, and then when you look in your concordance, what will you find? Oh, okay, Lord God, Yahavah Elohim, okay, right? When it says, I am that I am, and I am has sent me, it doesn't mean I am. Matter of fact, if it was using the term I, we know how to say I, an I, right? Which is why a lot of our Rastafari brethren say I and I. We were just talking about that, right? They say I and I based off an I. An I is saying I. So I, right? An I. So it would say an I. Does he say an I? Does it even say that in the concordance? Right? If it says an I, okay, maybe we can say I is in there. But there's no such thing in Hebrew as I am. It's I. So somebody wrote that. So even that's somebody being more poetic, or somebody trying to say they want you to focus on this, or them saying the burning bush is who Yah is. Therefore, we're saying in all caps that's who he is, but that's not his name. But it's really weird because the person who doesn't know that, we are not educated, or persons who are not being educated to that, they're not going to recognize what's going on. How you doing, T-Mac? T-Mac 2 times. I don't know if that's how you say it. But welcome. Right? You see what I'm saying? So we have to recognize a lot of stuff has been changed, a lot of stuff is out of order. Come on? A lot of stuff has been changed, a lot of stuff is out of order regarding it. So when you see that piece, when you hear that piece, right, and you're not aware of it, now you're aware of that. So watch this. This is the American dream. The American dream gets you to where you are so much into what's dead that you can't have life. But the Yeshua said, anything that's satanic, anything that should be your nightmare, anything that is your nightmare, right? The Yeshua said what? The enemy coming for what? To kill, steal, and to destroy. He said that's what the enemy does. That's the corpse, that's the corporation. But he said, I have come that you might have life. Right? And that's how you say it, cool. And by the way, I have come that you might have life, right? If you know how English works, these characters are interchangeable. So when it says, I come that you might have life, this word life, some of you remember this from VBS, or for the adult VBS, when it says, I might have life, life is L-I-F-E, but guess what? F and V are interchangeable because F is not an original character for many different languages anyways. So the F sound, right, is from persons in certain Visigothic and Germanic languages that are doing that instead of doing the sound. So when it says, I've come that you might have life, when the Yeshua says, I've come that you might have life and more abundantly, he's saying that I've come that you might live. Remember, the enemy cometh but to steal and kill and destroy, a dead thing. But I have come, but the Yeshua come that you might have what? Life. That you might have life, which means that you might live different. But also, some of you might know that, might not know this, or might know this, the letter O and the letter I are interchangeable. Right? So if you actually look up this means that not only he's come that you might live differently or be alive because you're basically a zombie, right? But now you don't have to be a corpse, part of a corporation. You can also be what? You can also love or have action or chabah, the actions of the Most High Yahavah Elohim. So I've come that you might have life and more abundantly is because you will live, right? In a manner that opens up the doors to abundance, which means you will love or you will act in a certain way that causes you to be able to live or manifest things that, or manifestation happens through your actions that are based off of your faith. Come on. Salam. Khan. Hallelujah. So we have all this going on. Praise Yah. We're not finished though. Right? Because now, let's go back. 28 USC 3002 15. If somebody still has that up, you guys tell me what you find when you find this. 2828 USC is the United States Code. 28 USC 3002 15 subsection B. So we just finished subsection A. What is it? What do we get when we go 28 USC 3002 15 subsection B? What do we get when we arrive there? Once again, what do we get when we arrive at 28 USC 3002 15 subsection B? I'm only going to focus on a couple of them, but I want us to read the list. You guys read the list for me if you don't mind. If you don't, I'll look it up myself. But if somebody can put it in, I want somebody else, if you can, to put it in there for me. Because I don't want anybody thinking that I'm lying or making stuff up or whatever. I want you to look at it. Look at it in your search engine or whatever. 28, or if you got the book, look it up there too. But 28 USC, United States Code, 28 USC 3002 15, subsection B. 28 USC 3002 15 subsection B, B in parentheses, lowercase b in parentheses. What do you find? Anybody got it? If so, if not, I'll look it up. But anybody got that? 28 USC 3002 15 subsection B. Anybody see what that says there? Anybody got what that says there? 28 USC 3002 15 subsection B. Anybody got that? You said the problem is that Hebrew was a dead language for 1,000. No, Hebrew was never a dead language. We don't stop that. We know it wasn't a dead language for 1,000 years because it can't be a dead language if we know that Negroes spoke it and from the 1300s to 1550s when they finally stopped calling them Negroes, but we know who Negro was according to Spanish Inquisition and all that in Spain and in Portugal. They still have the ghettos set up in Spain. In Portugal that they used for the Negroes that were there. That they said were swarthy. They said they had locks. They said that they worshipped the Most High Yah. They said that they obeyed the Torah. They said so. We know that it wasn't dead. It never was dead. So when somebody says it was dead, that's somebody saying we tried to off it, or you're listening to the persons who committed genocide, telling you they thought the language was dead. We also know that the language can't be dead because Christopher Columbus gets a Hebrew interpreter in 1492. When he sails the ocean blue, before in 1493 they do the whole doctrine of discovery and make that official. We know that Christopher Columbus brought over a Hebrew interpreter with him to talk to those who were in what persons would call Hispaniola, which we know is today to be Haiti and what is it? The Republic de Dominicano, or whatever you would call it, Dominican Republic. So we know that it wasn't dead. Although Adak Equiano is proof that it wasn't dead. Yeah, it can't be dead. Now, what persons are using today called modern Hebrew, that's just made up, right? That's made up by persons who were really Romani, but everybody calls them whatever the name you're not supposed to call them anyways. I always forget. But you guys know them by a different name. But by the Romani people and stuff like that, and persons who mix Visigothic, Greek, Germanic, etc. Languages together, and then put a couple of things that they know here or there. But no, you can't have a dead language if we have several persons you can point at who literally write the same language. But anyways, can anybody tell me where 28 USC 3002 15 subsection B says? Subsection A defines it as a corporation. The United States is a corporation, right? But 28, and by the way, if you can't even speak Anglo or Anglo-ish. That's why Anglo, those persons were off. So you technically don't speak Anglo-ish, right? You speak Germanic, you speak French. See, that's actually a dead language because the persons who spoke it genocide. But the persons who spoke Hebrew, even when it was tried, we were scattered even before genocide could take place. So there's a whole bunch of us that speak different dialects. So the language never went anywhere. It's just like when people try to talk about the scattering and the Tower of Babel and all that. Shem never had his language scattered. Thank you, Brother Craig. I see you. Subsection B. Subsection B. It is an agency. Let's look this stuff up, just real quick. See, so if you've been living the American dream, we got to say you can't live it because that's not true. Let's look at subsection B, and I don't normally go into the subsections as deep as I normally do, or this deep in classes. So we get a little extra today, right? But let's look up the lawful definition, right, of agency. You ready? That's the first one we're going to look at. Lawful definition of agency. Okay? An agency, watch this, is a fiduciary relationship where one person, which is the agent, consents to behalf of another, who is the principal. The agent and the principal. Subject to the principal's control. The principal, the one who is originating this, right? The one who is in charge of the trust, whatever, the one who is through the trust is allowed to be the beneficiary. The one through the trust is allowed to be the beneficiary, right? This is what we're talking about. So the principal and the agent have conversation. This is what makes this, by definition, a fiduciary relationship, or what we would call an agency, lawfully. A lawful agency is a fiduciary relationship where one person, the agent, consents on behalf of another, who is the principal, right? It's subject to the principal. All right, you catch that? You catch that? All right. So we have to keep that in mind. Now I'm gonna just use the internet again. I'm ain't gonna go off the top of the dome. Let's make sure this is what the internet says, not what Kofi says. Because somebody be like, you just making stuff up. Let's look up what the definition of fiduciary is. Not what I said. Right? What is fiduciary? Because it says, right, part of the definition, we got to learn this. A lawful definition, agency is a fiduciary relationship. So if it's a fiduciary relationship, what kind of relationship is that? Fiduciary. It means what? Involving trust. These are lawful terms. Trust in the Lord. That's trust. Trust. Especially with regard to the relationship between a trustee and a beneficiary. Did we not just say that? So I said it, but somebody might be out there, oh, you just making stuff up, or here's one of these Hebrew Israelites who doesn't know, or here's one of these sovereignty folks or sovereign citizens, even though there's no such thing as a sovereign citizen. You're the sovereign citizen, but regardless, just in case somebody thinks I'm making this up, this is right here for you, right? What you can look up for yourself. Once again, what is a lawful definition? Lawful definition, agency is a fiduciary, which is a what? A relationship between a trustee and who? And a beneficiary. That's it. All right? So an agency is a relationship between a trustee and a beneficiary. All right. Now, what are we saying for the rest? Where one person, the agent, consents on the acts of behalf of the principal, right? So the trustee, right, has to consent to the act on behalf of another, or depending on how it is, I guess you would really say this more like the beneficiary or the trustee. The trustee watches over the trust. The trustor writes the trust. The trustee has to guard the trust and make sure that those who are listed as beneficiaries get what they're supposed to. All right, so it's subject to the principal's control, and the agent agrees to do so. This arrangement creates a formal relationship where the agent's actions within their scope of authority bind the principal to third parties. Key aspects include the agent. Well, I'm not even going to all that. So, but long story short, so if we're talking about the United States of America, subsection B says, or the United States as a corporation, subsection B tells us very clearly that the United States, if it is a fiduciary or fiduciary, I'm not sure how some person say it different, whatever, but if they are going to be these things, then we have to be honest about the fact that, hey, we have to say who is the trust or the trustee and who is the beneficiary. Who are the people? Who is the nation? Who does it benefit? Are you part of the nation? This was written for rich white men in the late 1780s and early 1790s, 1787, 1789, 1791 to be exact. Right? So if I have a fiduciary relationship with you, we're talking about trustee and beneficiary. And you are not the beneficiary. The government, or the United States, the beast is. Right? The beast is going to get because of this relationship, not you. Donald Trump, and by the way, any of them, Biden wasn't looking out for you. Look at what he did for his son on the way out. You couldn't get him to give you nothing. He said some of y'all voted him in because y'all said he was going to keep his promise and he was going to give you guys reparations. But he made sure not only his son, he said on his way out, not only is my son going to be saved, he said, I'm rewriting this and I'm protecting persons in my family. I'm going to put all my family members' names in here just in case any of y'all come at him. Right? You're not the beneficiary. It's not written for you. Their responsibility, their job, what they get paid for is to preserve the union. And they put themselves up there, so when they preserve the union, they preserve themselves. They are the trustors, the ones who wrote it. They are the trustees, the ones who make sure they protect it and give it and make sure that it's always taken care of for the beneficiary. And then they make sure that the beneficiary is always themselves. The only way that you can make sure that you can even have conversation with them is to be private enough to be able to be on the same level. I can talk to the president on his level because I respect him as the president as part of his corporation. He has to respect me because he has to respect the natural person. I don't get into arguments with the presidents and the mayors and the governors and all this over false promises, right? Y'all are having conversations with them about false promises. Well, everybody's supposed to be equal. No, they're not. The savage and the slave were said to have no rights in the Constitution and in the preamble and in the Declaration of Independence. So all these arguments you have, oh, you guys should give us this and you guys should give us that. You're not even considered to be a human being. And if you don't believe me, look up Black's Law Dictionary. Black's Law Dictionary, look up the term, or look up these terms. You're never supposed to use these terms if you want to be considered a natural person, not an artificial person. In law, in court, you can never be considered to be a, you should never consider yourself in the West, in court, to be black, colored, Negro, or African American, because all of those in court are considered to be artificial persons. We're talking about in court. If you were to go to court and you were to label yourself as any of those things, they're all considered to be artificial persons. These persons have no rights or have no rights outside of the corpse of the corporation. You have to be a dead thing in order to make sure that you get, dead gifts. Or a human being. Well, a human, right? A human is not even, a human is considered to be a monster by definition, by lawful definition. A monster is considered to be one that has no rights. They don't want humans to have rights. Right? So that's why you have to be very careful. I'm not going to be a human, because if I say human rights, you guys don't realize those are rights of monsters. Right? You give these monsters their rights and their little awful virtual real estate over here somewhere, because as long as you give them rights or whatever, hey, they won't break down the system, because a real human being is monstrous to the system. Right? This is what the legalese is that you're not comprehending. Right? So number one on this list, and thank you, Brother Craig, I'm just going off of what you found for us, right? Watch this. Subsection B specifically refers to an agency. Watch this. Now here's another one. I'm just looking up lawful definitions. Lawful definition of department. Not what I think, not what it originally meant, blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about what is there. If you look at a lawful definition of a department, what are they saying? Department of Defense, Department of Transportation, Department of HUD, or Department of Housing, whatever. Excuse me, what are they saying? Legally, a department most often refers to a specific administrative unit within a larger government, business, or organization that has a distinct and specialized function or purpose, such as the Department of Justice or a company's accounting department. The precise legal meaning can vary by context and jurisdiction, but it consistently denotes a distinct functional division within a hierarchical structure. There's a hierarchy, right? And in the hierarchy, not just hierarchy of persons, right? There's also a hierarchy of what? There's not just a hierarchy of persons, there's a hierarchy of departments. My wife and I, we were out yesterday, well, all of us as a family were out. One of the things I was telling her is like, the state police, I had to ask them a question. We were going to a fair, and I was like, I didn't know that. I was like, sir, blah, blah, officer, thank you, blah, blah. And I looked at his rank when he was walking away. Now, it's not the same rank exactly as Army, but they have this rank in the Army, they have this rank in the even though they don't call it the same thing in the Army and the Marines and in the Air Force, but he had, a basic, well, I don't know, in the Marines, you call it a PFC, right? In the Army, you could call it possibly a PV2, but he had one chevron. Right? If you have two chevrons, we call you sergeant, right? In the Army and the Marine Corps. But if he just had one chevron, he was in the military, it'd be an E3. But basically, in the police force, if you have nothing on your sleeve, that's basically a private, right? If you have, it's from English sensibilities and stuff that they put in place in England around with Scotland Yard and all that came into being and stuff like that. So if you have nothing on your arm as an officer, you're private. If you have the chevron, one chevron or one upside down V, if you will, then that's a private. And then you have, or I don't know if they call it PFC, but I think that's a private, right? And then if you go up from that, get two chevrons, that's a sergeant, and then they probably have sergeant majors. I don't know after that, because then you have lieutenant and captain, and I don't know where all that stands, but we know everybody has certain rank, this and that, certain persons report to whomever. But he was a state police officer for this fair. So when I saw the state police officer, it showed some ignorance on my part, but I was like, oh, I would have thought that all state police officers, and that it might vary by state, but we were in Maryland, so I was thinking like, oh, all state officers, should have, who is that? It's crazy work. Sorry. So I was like, I thought that if you got to be a state police officer, right, state trooper, whatever, you would automatically be like a sergeant, bare minimum. So when I saw the private or PV2 or private first class or whatever they calling it, I was like, oh, okay, or no, private is nothing. So private first class or PV2 or whichever they go by. I was like, oh, all right, interesting. I didn't know that you could be, but the state trooper, I started wondering. I started being like, well, I wonder if the state trooper, they probably, because there's jurisdiction too. So the department for the state troopers, he might come into contact with somebody who's in the department of the city, and he might have to call that person above him, like sergeant. But the sergeant might have to bow down to the PV2 or whatever as the state trooper, because the state trooper, depending on jurisdiction, might have more say so than the sergeant does in his jurisdiction. So when we talk about departments, all these departments, they have jurisdiction, but they have rank. But this also means not only do you have a Department of Transportation, right? Department of Housing, Department of whatever, right? Department of Justice, etc. This also means that the United States Corporation is a department, which means that they are not in charge. Don't miss that. If they are a department, then they are a department of something. So you got to figure out who the United States Corporation works for. Remember, it talks about the context and the jurisdiction. So depending on what the context is, depends on how much jurisdiction the United States has. We just make an assumption that they have all this jurisdiction, but it depends on the context and the jurisdiction. You said there's a correct edition. All of them. You need to learn. You need to have access. Now you can get most access, most of them virtually, right? Or there are persons who teach law. Like I go to somebody's classes and they allow us to have access to their law library. I pay a monthly fee and I get access to it. So there's different ways you can go about it. But yeah, I would suggest try to get as many editions as possible, because you need to know. You also need to know when stuff is changed. For example, if you're one of these persons who's trying to not pay taxes, you got to be careful with that. First of all, you need to learn law if you're going to do that. Don't just do something random. But second, you need to you need to know when did the law change, because if you try to use laws past a certain or before a certain date, they'll be like, you can't use that law, and they'll still come for you for not paying taxes. So you actually have to know what the stuff is, right? But you have to know when the United States of America was in fact, or what is the context and what jurisdictions the United States Corporation had. Sometimes they have a lot more than you think. Sometimes they don't have anything, but we don't know, right? The next one it says is that the United States is a commission. So let's look up the definition of commission, the lawful definition of commission. All right? Lawful definition of commission. It has multiple definitions, including an official document granting authority to act, right? So the United States is in and of itself an official document, right? Or it gives, as an official document, it gives authorization for persons to act. So you have to know what is actually lawful. How can somebody act, right? The act of committing a wrongful act, whatever it says makes it a wrongful act. A fee paid for services. So the United States is a fee paid. That's going to get interesting when we get to subsection C, right? The United States Corporation can also be looked at what? It can be also looked at as a panel or committee appointed to perform a specific duty. Is there a panel or committee, or are there multiple panels or committees at the United States Corporation? Of course, because it is not a country. It is a corporation. In a kingdom, we don't have a panel. The king might have persons he goes to and asks questions to, but there is no panel. If the king says it is what it is. All right, let's keep on going now. Let's keep on going. So we got those. I'm on right. Let's see. We have. It says it could be another entity of the United States, and here's the last one, right? It also is a board. I kind of skipped over board. I wanted to come back to it. It's a board. We just talked about this too, and it being a commission or a panel. But if it's a board, who's on top of the board? Right? You got a president, a vice president. So you got secretaries. You have treasurers. You have minority leaders, majority leaders. You have the right, you have the left, you have Republican, you have Democrat, you have mayors, you have governors, you have senators that have power, voting power, senators that don't have voting power, all these things. These are boards. But question, who's in charge of the board? Is the president, the the president sits on top of the board. Is that correct? The president sits on top of the board. Is that a correct statement? Is that a correct statement? While I'm talking about this, can somebody, if you don't mind putting in the chat, can somebody look up, because I don't want to be the only one. I want y'all to see for yourselves. I don't want somebody saying I'm making stuff up. Can somebody look up 2828 USC is in United States Code 300215. So 28 USC 300215 subsection C. Can somebody look up subsection C? I want to see what you find. You tell me what you find. That being said, if it's a board, the president is not in charge of your board. Who's in charge of a board? If you were to start a business today, if you were to have an LLC to trust today, and you started a board, is the president in charge of the board? Now you can write it to where maybe they are, but how do most of these boards work for these corporations? Who's in charge? Is the president in charge of the board? Is the vice president in charge of the board? Is the secretary in charge of the board? Who's in charge of the board? This is actually the fight that you guys don't know that's going on with Trump when he's talking about, when he's sending all these places and he's making, now all of Texas and all of New Mexico and Oklahoma and Arizona and all that, he's giving access and he's making excuses to send in, and the governors are bound down because they want to get voted into, and the senators are bound down because they want to get voted into. And you got to look at, but you're looking at the wrong fight. He is the president, but he's not the person at the top of the board. There we go. Thank you, Sister Greta. Thank you, Brother TJ. The president thank you, Brother Keith. The person on top of the board, thank you, Off the Sauce. The person on top of the board is the CEO. We got CEOs, we got CFOs, we got COOs. The CEO. The CEO is the person at the top of the board. So if the CEO is on top of the board, the fight that's actually happening is that the president is trying to take some of the CEO's power. The CEO, even they got some problems with Trump. But the way the stuff is set together, Trump is trying to figure out how to get whatever he can. But Trump is not the CEO. He's trying to become the CEO/president. That's the fight. You guys are worried about the other stuff, and I get it. You should be. But hear what I'm saying. As far as law, you got to figure out how to make sure that the CEO can continue to have power if you want the United States corporation to exist differently. Or you're just going to have to make sure that you're private from the corporation. It's still got to go through the boards, right? But there's board members, right? He's been able to change the board members. He's been able to change. This is why your presidents always bring in persons and they have a new, what you call, cabinet, right? Inside of a cabinet, what do you put your dishes on? Inside of a cabinet, what do you put your cans on? Inside of a cabinet, what do you put your flour and stuff on top of? Right? Inside of a cabinet, what do they have? Even if you want to call them drawers and stuff too, they're still versions of what? Inside of a cabinet is what? I'm trying to help somebody, right? Inside of a cabinet, you have shelves, you have things to pull out. We call these things boards. So when the president has a cabinet, all we're saying is inside the cabinet is what? Boards. It's a corporation. It's corporate to talk. That's it. The shelves are boards, right? When you pull out your drawer, the drawer comes out, and what does the drawer do? The drawer has it set up to where these shelves are on wheels, right? And they also have the machinations in place to make sure that they can't be vents, they can't do certain things, and they can only go in and out. Inside of a cabinet is a board. That's all that's all we're talking about. We're talking about law. We're talking about legalese. We don't know what we're talking about, but that's all they're talking about. And so the president of the board, right, is even having beef with the CEOs. The CEOs are starting to get frustrated with him because he's doing stuff that's out of pocket, that's messing with them as far as what they're about to do. Supposed to do as this panel, as this commission, and for commission. Now watch this. Thank you, Brother Craig. You put it in there again for us, right? Hey, how you doing, Danny? Even the racist stuff or whatever, you got to do better. You got to do better. You got to do better. Like, not just better in life. That's your choice. I'm just talking about your trolling. It's terrible. So we're gonna go ahead and just let you go. But oh man, I should have reported you. But anyways, it is what it is. Trying to get me to say the N-word about myself or whatever, or about those listening. All right, it's kind of creative though. He said, "Can you say happy birthday?" He said that I have a cousin whose name, or somebody whose name is NICK space HER. Yeah, yeah. You got it, y'all. That's juvenile, right? Kind of come to the next level. Speaking of which, how you doing? Next level, 33, 33. All right. Anyways, I saw you, Lon. Thank you. So I should have reported you. I did report you. I messed up on that. I should have reported. Oh, I still can. Somebody else said they got you too. Report them too. Let me go ahead. Just put the hate speech up on there. Report you. Boom. There you go. All right. And I already blocked you from the channel. All righty. But and thank you, moderators. I see you. Appreciate y'all. I just had to deal with that one myself. Um, but anyways, yeah, so a board is in the cabinet. And so when you put that together with commission, all that's now, guess what? Let's go to subsection C. Subsection C. Thank you, Brother Craig, for writing it down. Under the federal debt collection procedures. Hold on. No, we're looking for 28. Sorry, that's kind of connected, but I'm looking for something for the basics right now. 28 USC 3002 15. We go to subsection C. Unless they changed this recently and I didn't know. I might have found out. I might be finding out right now that they changed it. 3002 subsection A, federal corporation, subsection B. Oh, my goodness, I gotta scroll down to it. It's not letting me scroll down to it. What's going on? Uh-oh. 28 USC 3002. Oh, sorry, 15. So, subsection A. So United States means, this is what United States means. Once again, federal corporation. So it's the Federal Corporation of America. United States literally means federal corporation, right? So it's a federal corporation. So right now, subsection B, it's an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of the United States. And then C is it is an instrumentality of the federal corporation or of the United States. Instrumentality. So let's look this up. What is an instrumentality? Right? What is the lawful definition? I'm just gonna look it up. Not coming off the dome. Let's just look this up real quick. Because you know they're a publicly traded instrument. Right? Money is a publicly traded instrument. Your birth certificate is a negotiable instrument. Right? Okay. How you doing, Joyful Spirit? All right, watch this. A lawful definition of instrumentality varies by legal context. So once again, depends on the context. But generally refers to a thing or entity, right? Once again, an entity, right? An entity of the United States, an entity of the federal corporation, right? Even if it is a not a natural entity, but even if it is a false or fake entity, right? But generally refers to a thing or entity used to achieve an end, a part of a larger entity performing governmental functions, or property used in a crime. Examples include a federal housing authority acting as a federal instrumentality, a firearm used in a crime as a criminal instrumentality, or a state university serving as an instrumentality of the state. So if you go to Indiana State belongs to the state, which means country. State is another word for country. United States is a corporation. This federal corporation is a corpse, is a dead version by law. I'm just using corporate, right? Corporative mindset, right? 28 USC 3002, following subsections 15 A, B, and C. Subsection A, subsection B, subsection C. We just went through today. So if you go to Indiana State University, Indiana State is an instrumentality of the so it's a negotiable instrument. It's used to negotiate or make money, and they're using you all coming through and your money that you're using and all that to be able to serve the country or serve the state of Indiana. If you go to Florida State University, it is an instrumentality of the state. It is used by the state to make money, including the children. Right? If you go, watch this, to prison. This is when we don't want to talk about this stuff, but see the American dream while it works. If somebody goes to prison, when you go to prison, you are going there as what? As an instrumentality of the state. Right? So you're going as instrumentality of the state. You're going to serve the purpose of using the state, the larger country, to be able to get to what its goal and its dream is. So all these things are true concerning what? The corporation, right, of the United States. Right? The corporation of the United States. That being said, Now that we got all that together, if the United States itself is an instrumentality, if the president himself is not the CEO, right? If the United States itself is not a country, to the point to where Washington, D.C. by law is not even a city, or it is, and it's definitely not a capital, but by law it is actually a territory. And it's the only reason why Congress even has any jurisdiction, because if Washington, D.C., a corporative, a fake version of a capital, right? Capital, you being the capital, money being the capital, fake names being the capital, etc. Right? A capital letter being the capital, right? If Washington, D.C., this territory doesn't exist as far as how to be over the fake capital, then that means that Congress has no jurisdiction over the fake capital, because Congress is a fake corporative board, right? That is serving the state. You see that instrumentality? You said, may we be able to say federal, may in some way be practitioners of some words. Oh yeah, of course. Once again, George Washington, even the Washington Monument, across from the Capitol or the Congress building, with ISIS or their version of ISIS, Columbia on top, and everybody who comes out supposed to be Heru, or the children of ISIS and Osiris, or the children of Washington and Columbia. They go look up who Columbia is in Greek worship, and it kind of puts it together, right? But this is so that yes, all those things are true. But I'm saying all this to say you are in a fake corporation, right? The American dream, right, is only alive because you are asleep. The American dream is only alive because you think that sleepwalking is the same level as actually walking. The American dream is alive because you think the federal government means real when the federal corporation is nothing more. The United States literally means federal corporation. As far as, well, we won't say literally. How about this legally? Legally, the legal meaning of United States breaks down by 28 U.S.C. 3002, 15 subsection A, United States Code. United States actually breaks down to what? It breaks down to federal corporation. So whenever somebody says United States of America, you're talking about now the federation, the federal corporation of America. When somebody says United States of America, you're talking about Federal Corporation of America. If you're in the system, in the federal corporation, and also of the federal corporation, that's where you are. That's where you be. That's right. They'll be under a strong delusion. Come on, bold servant, quoting that word. Under a strong delusion. That's what the Bible says. He'll allow you to get you over to a reprobate mind, all that stuff. If you want to keep going there, you'll be under a strong delusion. He'll give you over to it. Right? You have free will. He's not going to hold you. He can't keep, even though he says, you are my wife. But if you want to cheat or whatever, hey, fine, I'll give you over. I'm not going to force you to not go somewhere. I can't. You have free will. I can't stop you from cheating if you want to cheat. I would hope that you wouldn't, but if you decide you want to go over there with them, go over. But you under a strong delusion. If I'm perfect and I'm the maker of heaven and earth and I'm the one that gives you eternal life, but you want to be under the beast who's here to make sure they steal, kill, and destroy, to be under a corpse that's a fake corporation and has no life. But I've sent my son that you might have life and more abundantly, but you want to deny my name and my son's name and even the Vakakodash and who she is to you, then so be it. You have every right. Just don't be upset when after the devil goes to hell that you join him. Salah. So a lot of persons are not aware of that, not even aware of the strong delusion. A lot of us are not even, for us, a lot of stuff seems like it's not possible. Why wear the shirt? We already talked about that before. If you or somebody doesn't know what the Ankh actually means before somebody turned it into what we now think is only related to worship, it is what it is. It's recorded. I don't know exactly the recording where it is. It's probably, 20, 30 minutes in if you want to look on the platform. Well, we're at the end of the video anyway, so if they want to stop us, it's too late. If you want to look at YouTube, feel free to go over there and look at today's recording and actually see what it is. I think I have a teacher still this up, but then if it wasn't on the other channel, we go over from time to time. And if persons want to go through it once again, Thursday and Friday are coming up. That's our Q&A days. Feel free to join us 8 a.m. through 11 a.m. and we can go at it then. Or not even go at it, but we can have proper debate as far as actually structured, conversation concerning it and trying to reveal truth, facts that reveal truth, not just having context without facts or facts without context. So it is what it is, right? But yeah. So you see, And all the stuff that's going on, we have a false, fake, corporative mindset, right? We have a false, fake, corporative mindset, and persons don't recognize that. So the American dream, the only way you can be in the American dream is you got to stay asleep, or you have to be walking while you sleep, right? But for us, we know we haven't experienced the American dream. We've only experienced, or we've only lived the American nightmare. And the nightmare for the person who's giving you this false American dream is that you would wake up. That's their biggest nightmare. That's the thing that keeps them up at night. That's the thing that has persons, like literally, that's the thing that has, persons trying to write all this law and put stuff into this and that, what they can do and all this. The thing that's going to cause them the most headache and heartache and all this stuff is they're trying their hardest to make sure that this is not, they're trying their hardest to make sure that you don't ever come into the realization that if you're in free will, you have to exist outside of your system. That means that's what a true ambassador is, right? I got a whole bunch of geese over here near me to the right. If I were to try and get in their circle, first of all, they probably try to beat me up. But they've been pretty chill with me today. Other people have been chasing them and stuff, but we've been chilling today, right? Last couple of times I've been here. And but if I were to walk through these geese, I would stand out, right? If I were to try to live like them, I guess I could, but I'm not going to be able to fly. There's certain things that I wouldn't be able to digest, right? There's certain ways that they fight that I wouldn't be able to fight. It just is what it is. I'm not them, right? You should look like that. You should look like kings among geese. You should look like kings among these animals. You should look like persons who are great. You are royalty. You are ambassadors. An ambassador is only an ambassador because when he goes into someone's country, he is never considered to be part of their country. He's only considered, no matter where he goes, to be part of the country that sent him. They're hearing the word, praise God. Right? An ambassador is only an ambassador, and our time is up. It's past 11 a.m. New York time. I'll see y'all this evening. Right? But an ambassador is only an ambassador due to what? An ambassador is due to the fact, or an ambassador is able to be one because they are in your country, but they're not of it. That's what makes one an ambassador. If I'm in your country and I'm of your country, I'm not an ambassador of another country, right? Unless I'm an ambassador of your country. But if I'm in your country and of it, I'm not an ambassador of another country. Okay? So that's what we're talking about. You see, so if I'm an ambassador, if I'm in the United States and I'm a United States citizen, I can't be an ambassador of the kingdom of heaven. If I'm in England and I have a birth certificate that belongs to the Corporation of the United Kingdom, I cannot be an ambassador. I have to be UK, right? If I say that I believe in the word, but I don't believe in using the name of the king, I can't be an ambassador. If I say that, watch this, if I say that I'm ordained, you know that ordained, and ordinance, and or persons that are ordained have to be ordained by a government. This is why you can only be ordained by the state or the country you are in, and that country has to tell you if you can or cannot marry somebody wherever you're going. Why? Because if you're not under somebody's ordinance or laws, or if the law has not set you apart, then you cannot be in a set apart position. So, so if you are a reverend, or if you are an elder, and you're an elder in the state of Maryland, then you have to be by law publicly controlled by the state of Maryland. This is why if somebody gets married under myself, I don't marry you under the public, under the beast, under the government. We're going to have a private situation. Because in private, you can still write a contract, and in private, you can make it deeper, and in private, you can say what you guys believe you guys want to do if you guys break up, or if somebody does break the law, if somebody does commit an offense of adultery, or commit the offense of fornication, or somebody, if somebody passes away, or whatever, you can have all this stuff written in private in your contract. The contract is a covenant by law. By law. And you can even uphold it without having to go to court. And if somebody tries not to uphold it, you can have it written in your covenant, and you even part of your trusts, part of your LLCs. This can be in there as well. You can add this in there to protect the smaller trusts, right? Right. We talked about all these words together, right? You can have a board that's actually inside another board. You can have a cabinet, but inside that cabinet, inside that big covenant, you can also have another covenant that's in there just for your marriage, you say. right? So I'm just trying to tell you, like, these are things that can be there, but you don't recognize how this works. The American dream and all the things that we do in America are so messed up, and we don't even realize America. Once you realize the basics that America can't even be an actual country, the rest of the stuff is not that difficult to see that line. That being said, like I said, it is overtime. We appreciate you all. Thank you for being on. The rest of the day, outside of those that I'm scheduled to be able to have conversations with throughout the day, outside of that, I wish you well. I appreciate you. We're going to have another meeting tonight for those who are going to be part of who are going to be coming either virtually or physically to Feast Tabernacles. I'm going to have later on in a couple hours, it'll be up just for a little bit, so you're going to need to look up. I'm going to say by the time, well, yeah, I'm going to say probably until about 6 p.m. or 6:30 p.m. I'll have it up. So give me like maybe no more than an hour after this live session. You'll see emailed and stuff. I'll try to make sure I copy and paste it on all the social media platforms I can. But by 7 p.m., try to look at, well, it'll be emailed to you regardless. You'll see the email. So when you see the email that comes out and says schedule for the week, please, man, please, sir, make sure you hold on to that. If you don't have that, look in our link tree or text us at 1 of the 202 numbers or catch up with our WhatsApp. By the way, if we can, as many of you as possible, try to sign up for WhatsApp if you have space on it on your device. WhatsApp, those of you who are in the UK, try to sign up for WhatsApp in the UK. Those who are sisters, I'll try to make sure we get that stuff on there too for you to sign up for the for the WhatsApp for the women. We have WhatsApp for women, WhatsApp for men, WhatsApp for the UK, and WhatsApp for everybody at Servants of Christ. So try to sign up for those. That's one of the easiest ways to get information out to you guys as well. And I've just found out recently that we can actually do like Zoom sessions of a certain kind. I don't know how many persons is a limit. We can have Zoom sessions on there, so we've been doing that with England for a little while. So that's an easy way. If we ever just need to get some information out, or we need to do something real quick, I can just say, hey, everybody, let's go to WhatsApp, or Clapper as well. Download that one. We usually use that more for watch parties, but we have a lot of stuff on Clapper and stuff as well. But thank you all. I appreciate you. We're going to go ahead and take our leave for today. Look for the schedule to come out for everything that's going to be happening for the week. And I very much so appreciate you all. Thank you again. We honor the Malachai, which is the royalty in each and every one of you. Whether you be male or female, we honor the royalty in each and every one of you. We appreciate you so very much. I'm going to go ahead and take my leave. Normally, our shout out is to music. Actually, I'll try some music today. We'll play some music and let you guys see over the water. Prayerfully, you'll be able to hear it, even with all the stuff going on, and the geese and the boats and the ships and the water and the wind. But prayerfully, you'll be able to hear it going on. You got to join us on TikTok for that. So if you can shift on over there to do the shout out with us. If you don't know how the shout out works, I'll explain it in just a little bit. If you can just stick around for a second. But I will see you guys on the live session this evening, 8 p.m. New York time. We're continuing our Malachi series. And even though I will have tomorrow and Wednesday off, I'll still be around for here or there if you want to try and come in on certain things you see me pop up on. Let's support our ministerial staff for what they do as well. Let's support each other's businesses. Brother Jermaine does have those shirts and everything for Feast of Tabernacles, whether they come virtually or physically. If you'd like to get some for yourself, for your family, look for him at Jermaine Insurance. That's J-A-E. Sorry. Excuse me, Brother Jermaine. That's Jermaine INSURANCE@gmail.com. Jermaine Insurance @gmail.com, or just text us for the information. We'll send it to you. And we'll try to get everything together for you all. We appreciate you so very much. And I should hopefully by this weekend, we should know for sure where we're going to be. We're going to have to switch around a couple of the dates that we had at a couple of the places. Still going to try and see if we can hit Texas at the end of September. We're going to try and hit you guys at the end of September rather than the beginning of October. And then that way we can focus the rest of our attention in Georgia, which means that October 1st we'll probably be in Georgia instead of in Texas. And then but we'll still be in Georgia for October 6th to the 13th on the land down there in the park down there for Feast of Tabernacles. So we'll have more information. September is fastly approaching. In the middle of September, or the weekend basically right before the Feast of Trumpets, we are going to get together somewhere on the East Coast, somewhere probably Maryland-ish, maybe Pennsylvania-ish. So if you guys who are in that area want to kind of get ready for a ride and meet up during the day, we're going to do 4 hours of power. Usually I do it in the evening, but if everybody's willing to travel and meet up somewhere, I can do it like around noon on a Saturday, and we can just all come together, find a place to be outside. You know, it's gonna be a little cool then, but we still probably can meet outside somewhere. You know, everybody come bring their own dish, stuff like that, and y'all can listen to me. I'm working on finishing up my next little 50-page manual and stuff to have that out. So if you guys are interested in getting that, by the time we have that, I'm working on that now. Probably put a little bit of excerpts out on Patreon. Patreon family, feel free to keep checking out what we have going on. We've been putting out information there, and SOC University, as well as Patreon. We've been doing a lot of lessons out of the Jefferson Bible, so please, man, please, sir, join us for that. We're getting back starting this week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The next 5 Tuesdays, Thursdays, so that's Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday. Next 5 Tuesdays and Thursdays, we are going to be doing, bringing back up our grafting series and lessons. So if you didn't get a chance to be all part of all 5 parts, or if you want to go and revisit them, it's up to you. We'll be doing them on Zoom. This time Zoom strictly, no recording this time. So if you're joining us, you gotta have a Zoom link, so let us know, and we'll get that out to you. That'll be on Tuesday and Thursday this week. Outside of that, like I said, I'll see you this evening. Thank you so much. Look out for the schedule of the week to come out, and then look out for the meeting tonight, 7 p.m. New York time, for those who would like to find out what's going on and assess what they can and can't do for Feast of Tabernacles, and start looking at what dates and stuff and get all that together. And then outside of that, I'll see you for the live session this evening. Appreciate you all. Thank you so much. Join us on TikTok if you'd like to be part of the shout out. And other than that, I hope that you guys remember, as always, that the Most High deserves all honor, and He's with you. We give our honor to Him for my wife, the Honorable Amma. And remember, as always, beloved, that you are loved, you're necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom, take care. The Zoom link will be put on the Google Calendar invite. If you need it outside of that, just let me know on tonight before 7 if you don't see it somewhere, and you can go ahead and get it. I can't put it out publicly because people have been messing with the stuff publicly. Okay, but thank you all for being on.